But yeah, so I'll just start it up, I guess.
Sure.
So yeah.
So I just wanted to say really quickly, my partner Camden, he'll probably be jumping in at some point too, if that's cool.
Great. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely, man. He was the guy filling in, right?
He was the guy. Yeah, he was the guy filling in on the Kraken stuff. Like when I had a sore throat and all that. That's him. He edits all my stuff now. So yeah,
he did a great job. So that was good.
Yeah, he's done a good job. Yeah.
Cool, man. All right, so everybody, welcome to the Deep Shares, I guess, second roundtable, sort of. We're just going to be talking about aliens again. I have Dave Zed from Generation Z podcast here with me, and my good buddy Eric Stone.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Doing good, man. Thank you so much. As Eric just said, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you guys here with me. It's good to catch up. Of course, Eric and Dave were both a part of our awesome disclosure roundtable back in June. That was awesome. I really enjoyed having you guys on for that. Thought it was a pretty good conversation.
That was a great time. I have to say that was really good. And not only that, but I mean the people seem to enjoy it a lot too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a lot to talk about since then, but
yeah, that's for sure. Especially the main focus of tonight, which is the documentary that I know both of you guys have consumed, correct?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I can just start rambling, but I'd rather give Eric the floor respectfully. If you know,
Eric's going to be cutting out early anyway. It's not early, but earlier probably.
And please, by all means, I'd like to say moving forward in tonight's roundtable that Eric, please, you take the floor first every time.
Well, okay then, I will. So I saw Greer's documentary, and I watched it with like no context whatsoever of who this guy was. And I kind of tried to like consume it on like this level where I'm just going to believe everything that he's saying and that it's true. And I'm not gonna I'm going to trust that this guy verified all of the shit that he's saying. Somehow in this documentary that seems to have come together really quickly and been put out. But I mean, clearly he knows his stuff. He was part of like that original press conference. You know, they get into that in the documentary. I thought it was really, really interesting. I mean, it's crazy to me. So for anybody who hasn't seen the documentary, right? It's this guy who has this disclosure project, which is not based on this recent disclosure, but in 2001, he got together a lot of top people from across aerospace and the government, and they were all like, "Hey, aliens are real, and we're going to talk about it." And he has people who worked like directly with folks that were involved with the Manhattan Project, and they have a lot of like primary sources, right? And like people, they have talked to people who know things, right? Yeah. And some of these people are people who know things that follow this disclosure project. So this documentary is kind of about how there's this plan kind of where what essentially amounts to, as far as I could tell, was that extraterrestrials are going to be positioned as a threat. And throughout history, we've been slowly working towards this place where they are considered a threat. And I thought that it was really, really interesting because really, a lot of it hinges upon Wernher von Braun's quote to this lady, right? And where he tells her on his deathbed that there's going to be a very set progression of who the enemy is going to be into the future. And he goes through, it's going to be terrorists, and then it's going to be I forget exactly what the sequence was, right? But the very last.
If I could jump in, post World War II, I believe the general structure was the threat of communism, then the threat of terrorism, then the threat of third world countries, and the last card was going to be the space card.
Yeah, so in the documentary, they're identifying like North Korea as the third world country, 9/11, terrorism. So like we're following this progression, and the next one is going to be extraterrestrials, and it's again it hinges on this quote that this guy delivered to this woman on his deathbed. And I say this guy is like, he's not just some guy, like he's an actual very important figure in history, like outside of UFOs, like, you know, he matters. Wernher von Braun matters. Look him up if you don't know who he is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of the audience knows who that guy is.
I would think so. I found it really, really interesting that they hinged a lot of stuff on this quote that it's like not really verifiable. But if, you know, again, I consumed this, like, just like it is verifiable, right? Like, I'm going to choose to believe these people because it's a hell of a lot more fun to believe them. That's true. And the way that this documentary like pieces this all together and provides evidence, like they said this is going to happen and then this happened and this person betrayed the cause, and how they're talking about
Leslie Kean,
how the media is being used to spin extraterrestrials as a threat, and how the media is being used, like the corporate media is being used to you know, kind of say, you know, like, stop trying to reach out, stop trying to have, like, stop trying to communicate. I found it very, very fascinating. Honestly, I walked away from it kind of just like, I don't really know what to make of this, because if presented coherently, any series of facts about any topic that you're not super, super, super well versed in can just like, you walk away from it and you're just like, fuck, shit. Like, this is definitely what's happening right now. Because like, I don't know any better. But I think that it's very difficult for anybody to watch that documentary and like not walk away from it. Like, look, maybe you don't want it. Maybe like you say something that's bullshit, whatever. But like, you kind of can't say it's all bullshit, because at the end of the day, you know, Andy, it's like you and I talk about, like, the government is intentional and
right.
Media is intentional. Like, they don't do things just because, and people don't just come forward to start talking about things just because. And, you know, disinformation is a real thing. And I think that the documentary makes a very, very compelling case for the fact that there's fuckery going on. And I think that you're kind of not paying attention if you don't think like that something like extraterrestrials is perfect to be positioned as an enemy. And I don't think you're paying attention if you don't realize that America like loves an enemy and needs an enemy. And we're also more divided than we have ever been. And we only become united around an enemy historically. So it's like everything this documentary talks about, like, it all matches up. It all makes sense. Now, I don't know how this manifests itself. Like how like when, like, because when someone decides like, okay, I'm going to go on to corporate media and state that aliens are not only real and not only are they here, but they are a threat. Like, that's a pretty big corner to turn. So I'm interested to see like, if that happens, how long does it take to get to that point? Because it's going to be gradual. They're going to slowly ratchet into that sort of thing. And by the time we get there and we're in a position to unite against this common enemy, like, are we going to need to be united anymore? It seems like, you know, if they have an agenda, they might want to accelerate their timeline.
Or it's almost like, are they, it all seems inevitable. I mean, I talk about it a lot. You know, sometimes things get censored, but if you want to get information, it is all available. You and I talk about this quite often.
Yeah.
So what is their end game? If it was basically what you're asking, right? Like,
yeah.
How is this playing out, and how does this fit in? How does this disinformation fit in, or how does this story fit in, and how does it align so well to the truth at times? Dave, what do you think about all this so far?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think I agree fundamentally with everything Eric said. And I was actually before I start, I wanted to ask Eric, brother, from the perspective of someone trying to take that unbiased view, just curious, and I'll explain why I'm asking this specifically. what type of vibe did you get from Stephen Greer? Nothing, evidence-based, data-based. When you watch, what did you get from him as just a simple guy, individual trying to go in with the mentality of, I don't know anything, and this is going to be the documentary to tell me?
He seems self-important.
I fundamentally agree.
Me too.
I just wanted to to add to that. I think the issue is that he's, again, and I would say this to Mr. Greer's face very respectfully. I'd say, sir, I really appreciate the core principle of what you're trying to do for the cause, but I would also say I think you have a God complex. I really do. And honestly, some people need to be humbled and what have you. I'm sure people have told him that before. Here's the thing. Putting Stephen Greer aside for a second, the core principle of the documentary, I fundamentally agree with, in the sense that we should take a friendly approach. That's my personal take. That's just my opinion. Now, in terms of, Mr. Greer saying, I think he said something along the lines of, there's all these shows out there now that say, the good ones, they look like Nordics, and the bad ones, they look like Greys and things like that. I couldn't help but think of myself, Andrew, and a handful of others too, right? So I'm thinking to myself, like, he's, in my personal opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, he's putting it in too much of a black and white type of situation. For him to say that they're all friendly, I think that just as much as there's a probability that mathematically there's life out there, I think there's also a mathematical probability there are very good ones, very bad ones, and then ones that truly don't give a shit about us. Honestly, that's my personal opinion. Why in the documentary he would say things, Mr. Greer, why he would say, the Greys are good, and the NSA is, or the CIA is controlling certain Greys to try to, to abduct people, to give that perception that Greys are bad. I believe that, but I don't know why he's categorizing all Greys into that area. Now, if he has something that he's not bringing forward, I'd be more than happy to have my mind changed if there's something missing from context, right? But for him to say all the Greys are good, and all these, these misconceptions about them being bad, trying to take us, I see what he's saying in the sense that the military-industrial complex, if they're going to reveal aliens, they're going to try to push it with a very basic principle, a fear-mongering principle. I understand that. But if you're really trying to push the truth out there, I'll be honest with you, why not, again, say there are different factions of Greys. Some of them are, again, benevolent. Some of them are malevolent. Some of them, they have different agendas. And again, we have to define what good or bad is, because it's all, perception to us. It's like my partner Camden gives a very good example of when you go with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever for a picnic, right? When those ants that you step on the grass, do you really intend to step on them? You don't. But again, it's perception. It's relative to what you know and what you're consciously doing, right? So again, to some of these aliens, maybe their intention for the human race is not bad, but again, I'm not trying to defend this, but if they, abduct 2 or 3 humans randomly and to experiment on, is that a bad being or alien per se? Again, they've just picked 2 or 3 out of the flock, right? Now, again, that's very unfortunate for those odd ones out that got abducted and experimented on. I'm not trying to push that aside, but at the same time, I think he's making it too black and white. I agree with him in terms of the dissemination of propaganda about how all the aliens in all the movies are always bad. Very rarely they're good. I think the last one was like the movie with Nicolas Cage, the movie Knowing, where, the aliens at the end take the children to another planet to, start fresh. But
that's really similar to the end of Midnight Special then too.
Right.
Spoiler alert from 2017 or something, but
right.
It's the one with Michael something or other. Never mind.
I think there's a handful of them that portray them in a more positive light. But overall, you take a look at, I don't know, let's see, for example, A Quiet Place. You take a look at, the movie Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. You take The Thing. You take a look at those type of movies and you see there's this sort of ominous type of luring thing going on. So look, I'll be honest with you guys. I think Greer's intention is good. Do I think he's doing it for profit? A certain percentage of it, yes. At the same time, there's just so much to break down about the things that I agree with and don't agree with. I'll be honest, I went into this thinking I was going to disagree with Mr. Greer much more than I actually did. It turns out by the time I watched it and finished it, I said to my girlfriend, I said, no, you know what? A good chunk of that I agree with. I thought there was going to be much more. I was going to say, like, you know, I fundamentally disagree or something like this. But I think this tribalism within the UFO community, like you were saying, Eric, about how they talked about, what was her name? Leslie Kean was trying to,
Leslie Kean.
She allegedly turned on Greer and those guys that were trying to really find the truth. I mean, look, we take a look at, for example, Robert Bigelow, who spent north of 100 million in liquid cash to try to find the truth. And again, we see the intelligence apparatus covering for them in the sense that, again, you have a guy who actually poses a threat. He's not some random guy on his computer. He poses a threat because he's got money to burn and time on his hands, right? So what do? We send out the propaganda team to feed him with BS, right? Again, you put these labels on these guys, the fancy names, former head of this, former director of that, former chief of that. You put them all around someone like Bigelow, just feed them with lies, right? So the reason why I say this, guys, is because I feel like this whole thing of Stephen Greer's pursuit for the truth, I think it is very good, but at the same time, I also think it's hopeless in a certain way. I don't mean to sound doomy and gloomy, but there's got to be another way to do this, because I mean, I think he's going as far and he's pushing the limits to the extent that one could go relative to coloring within the lines, metaphorically. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
At the same time, though, I do think, again, the negative things, the cons, I think he's got a God complex. I think that I understand you have to put money in your pocket to feed yourself. I understand that. But I think that the money he charges for the app, in addition to the CE5 events and stuff, he claims that, you know, he charges so much because it's to weed out the ones that aren't serious and things like that. And my argument to that is, okay, fine. If you're going to charge that much for a ticket, for an app or whatever, sure, then put a good chunk of it to charity or to a public fund or something like this to genuinely help people, right? Why is he walking away with, you know, large percentage of profits? And like I said, you got to pay your bills. I get that. But again, these are one of the issues I have. The God complex. Someone told me very recently that they went to go attend an event that he was at before the pandemic and all that. And it was a small gathering, and there was, I think it was outside, and he had a microphone, and he had given it away. And then about 10 minutes later, he asked for the microphone back, and he got very upset that no one ran to him quick enough to give him the microphone. Apparently he threw like a big fit about it after. So again, now this is just word of mouth. I want to be as respectful as possible. Just to, you know, quick recap before I finish my little rant here. I think that the core principle of his documentary was great, but I also think that he sugarcoated it in far too much of a black and white manner. You know, because I've researched and studied incidences of certain aliens looking just like us doing terrible things. Now, yes, generally speaking, the ones that abduct, the aliens that abduct humans tend to look human, but could that be a ploy of the military-industrial complex using, you know, holographic imagery? This is the problem. Problem.
we had holographic imagery that could, well, at least according to Jacques Vallée and whatever documents he saw. Yep. And he claimed that one of them was a document that was kind of discovered during Watergate about showing up on Cuba. Yeah. And like, so like Jacques Vallée, you know, just being a scientist, talking on that show in the 70s, saying that, oh, this is the technology we have today. It's like, we look back at the 70s, maybe not we, but, you know, in general, people look back at the 70s and they don't think that that's technology they had today at that point, you know? So, I mean, it's kind of giving up the ghost right away a little bit right there, that like things have, I mean, we had what was it, like a gigabyte processor in the 70s that no one wants to talk about, you know? There's a lot of that kind of stuff, of course. If I could jump in a little bit just to give just to throw my perspective in the pool here, and I worry because I, like Dave and like Eric, I've always been very passionate about this topic. I love this kind of stuff. And I do really worry though that we're getting taken on a ride between these two factions for the most part, because what I see, Dave, your research goes so beneath where I'm going into the details of a lot of these darker projects that you found out about and things like that. And I'd love to get into some of that as well, if we could, at least, to the extent that it, won't get us kicked off or anything. But before we do that, just to frame that, it's not that I don't think these things are happening possibly under the surface of everything, but I also know, and what I've been talking a lot about on my podcast is this perfect mimicry that goes on constantly in everything we do in every part of our lives. Any natural, real, good thing that we could find, there's always a mimicry right next to it that's alluring and devoid of that meaning and devoid of transformation and all that good stuff. So where I'm going with this is that, yes, of course, everybody gets it's Elizondo versus Greer in the battle, basically, in this battle of language constantly on they're both going on podcasts left and right, and they're both doing interviews and this and that. So what are we being fed? I think we're being fed the same exact thing, because in this documentary, I get that they're talking about how, it's all about, Paola Harris talks about how it's all about the toys. Of course, I thought it was because they were afraid society would fall apart, but no, of course, it's all about the toys because it's all about money, isn't it? And all that is part of the bullshit. That's part of the psyop, in my opinion, because I think we've talked about it a little bit on the roundtable, that at that up there, they're not really using money in the way that we use money. Where they're not. They're throwing out numbers when they need to. Sure, whatever. Right. They can make or break whatever they want. And I'm using that very liberally because they really fucking can, and they really do. And, look at the Luis Elizondo situation where the Black Vault, of course, he's always the first on the scene trying to get FOIA documents released and shit like that, trying to get Elizondo's emails, and it has to go into an appeal. And then, they don't exist. The emails don't exist. Now, legally, historically relevant documents at that level cannot be destroyed ever. And of course they existed at one point. There's no question about that. And they're just walking around blame. I'm kind of going all over the place here. What I'm getting at is I'm hearing all about the toys from both sides. One of them's kind of twisting it to say, this is what it's about. They're lying to you. And the other ones are like, yeah, this is what's going on. There's some crazy tech out there. But they're both talking about the tech. And they're both pushing this idea on us, on a generation that is obsessed with sci-fi and all the tech. Eric, you can stand to that. And so can I. And I'm Dave, I'm sure we're all talking on podcasts right now. I mean, we're all into it. So yeah, that's my 2 cents at first, just to lay the groundwork of my opinion about this being a lot of deception. And I cannot get around his friggin' crying. And this time he got Paola Harris involved with the gig and everything, and they did a great performance. But this is every single documentary. Of course, we can look at him like maybe he's just being a genuine guy. I don't know if we can really rely on that. I don't know. It's anecdotal either way.
Brother.
The guy's name is all over the documentary, right? He's all over the documentary. Everything that's in that documentary is intentional. It's there. Every part of it is there for a reason. I mean, I think that he made some really interesting points. At one point he says, of course the aliens aren't here to hurt us. If they wanted to, they could have already. Like, why wouldn't they? So
could the elites.
Yeah, why wouldn't they have just done it? Or it's just like,
so could the elites. Maybe we should trust them too.
David, you made a really interesting point that didn't occur to me until you alluded to it. But the documentary is very black and white, you state, right?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me to consider the fact, and I don't think many consider the fact that when we're talking about extraterrestrial life, there could be more than one kind. Right. So I think that most people, when they think about these sorts of things, there is one alien civilization that has contacted us, when it's there's really no reason to think that whatsoever. And just like humans, there's also no reason to think that they're all good or they're all bad.
Right.
I think, Andy, your point about focusing on the tech, it's so focused on the tech that it makes me think that it has nothing to do with the tech whatsoever.
Ooh,
and
all right.
I can't help but think that you know, and you and I have talked a lot about like what's the end, what's the goal here, like what's the point, like to what end is all of this happening? And you know, themes like control and power come up, right? But I can't help but think that if they wanted to, you know, air quotes, could we not? What scenario could possibly be better to identify and turn neighbor against neighbor arbitrarily for whatever reason you wanted than, you know, coming forward and saying that there's alien life on Earth, they look just like us, we've known about it forever, and alien. You know, like I don't know.
Oh man.
Listen, I'm not saying that this is like that I think that, but like it certainly does fit in pretty well, I think, with like if we're going to talk like big grandiose like motivations and fear and power dynamics, it's like I don't know. I'm stretching for a reason why this is all coming out right now. Like, what's the point? You know, when we talked in our disclosure roundtable, is like we went around and said, what do we think we're going to get from this disclosure coming up? And you know, we were all right. Like they didn't really give us too much, but they're still talking. It's still happening right now. And like I gotta ask why? Like, what is their end game? And we don't really know. So I feel like everything is on the table.
Well, I will say, from my perspective, well, first of all, hi Camden, welcome to the show.
What's up?
Yeah, Camden, brother, you came in at the right time. We were just starting to hit it off. I kind of gave my little rant that you have probably heard a million times over, so it's good that you missed that. Camden, but before you start, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in quickly to add to Andrew and what Eric you're saying there. I appreciate that. First off, Eric, thank you. But secondly, I think the answer to why now, if in my humble opinion, based on our research, I don't think it's human beings that are pushing for this disclosure. I think that humans at the highest level of power and government amongst multiple powerful nations across the world are trying to mitigate this. I don't think they're the ones that are controlling the release of the information. And to address the why the technology, it's interesting because when you take a look at a lot of the cases that Jacques Vallée, amongst others, have studied since the late 1800s up until now, when these extraterrestrials used to communicate telepathically with humans and things like that, one of the main things that they, regardless of the species, whether it was Nordics, Greys, reptilians, you name it, was that they wanted humans to understand their spaceships because it's more than just a ship, more than just a craft. It is like their, I guess you could say, their chariot, their horse, if you will. They can interface with it telepathically. It can change shape. It can manifest into different forms of light, if you will. It can go into different dimensions. Now, again, different races have different, you know, levels of how ascended they are or descended they are technologically. But if you want to know the truth, guys, I think in my head, I visualize it as, you know, we have Majestic 12 at the very top of this pyramid, the new version of it, because they have to name successors shortly before they're going to resign their position. And I think that ultimately what ends up happening there is the Majestic 12 or the Zodiac guys, that group there, it basically takes the information from the extraterrestrials and they're told, okay, this is going to get pushed out and this is going to be the overall concept, if you will. Listen, I could be totally wrong. This is just my opinion, but yeah, anyways, that's my 2 cents, Camden, brother. And Ron, sir, very nice to see you.
Ron, how's it going, man? Ron from Wicked Planet Podcast has joined the conversation as well. So we got to get these two introduced.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yes, sir. So Camden, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Good.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you too, dude.
So we are talking about Greer. I'm assuming you watched the documentary too, Cosmic Hoax. So what's your initial take on it? We're just jumping in.
Well, to just jump in and build on what y'all were talking about just now. To me, Greer kind of builds into his own theory of like these things are inevitably coming out because of like his unacknowledged documentary, right? And so like people can't ignore it anymore. It's getting too much momentum. I kind of don't necessarily agree with that. More take it to where Dave was going, like the aliens, the ETs, the EBEs, whatever you want to call them, are pushing for this, and they're making it unignorable, I guess is really how you could say it. And because it's unignorable, then these governments have to kind of release the information that they do have, because they would rather just, like Greer made great points, they would rather just figure out how to incorporate the technology they get, backwards engineer it, and then put it into companies they can make money off of, put stocks in, and keep their money game going. So they would rather do that. But because this is so unavoidably, like, duh, here it is, like there's so much going on that they kind of can't. So now they've taken this approach of, we don't know what they are, we have no idea, I have no idea, this is scary. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think you're muted. Yeah.
Totally am. Yeah, I was saying, just laying out that mimicry for us that I was saying in the beginning. Ron, how you doing, man?
Sorry. Sorry. Hey, sorry. First off, sorry guys, I'm late. Show went a little longer tonight than I thought. Do I sound okay, Andy?
Hell yeah.
Okay, cool.
Crisp and clear, man.
Yeah, so I'm doing good. I was really excited to get on here and meet these guys. I watched Dave and Camden on show the other night. I believe you guys were on Legit Bat. With my buddies Joe and Jen.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh wait, yeah, no, I saw you in the what, chat, comments, whatever it is. Yeah, I think no, totally, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really close with those guys over there. And when I saw that you were going to be on, I said, I definitely got to check this out. So my show, The Wicked Planet, when we record on Wednesday night, went a little late. So I apologize for being late, but I'm here.
No worries, man. No worries. Glad to have you. Yeah. So you watched the documentary recently as well, Cosmic Hoax. What are your initial take? What's your initial take on it?
My take on the Cosmic Hoax. Okay. So I've watched several of the Dr. Greer movies, like the Unacknowledged, the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and also the Cosmic Hoax. Right? I'm a big fan of Dr. Greer's, and I know that he gets a lot of flack. And now the UFO community is kind of splitting off, right? We kind of talked about that before. It's splitting off to either you subscribe to the Dr. Greer version, or you subscribe to the Lou Elizondo, Tom DeLonge, Bob Bigelow side, right? Where they're vilifying everything, like okay, so these UAPs and these extraterrestrials, right? These are a danger. These are a danger to us. They're malevolent. Sorry about the pronunciation there, but you guys know what I meant, right? So they're here to harm us. So this is why we need Space Force. This is why we need space weapons. This is why we need to be ready to combat them. Then you have the Dr. Stephen Greer side of the story, which is like, these extraterrestrials are not a danger to us, like, period. Right? There's never been, according to Dr. Greer, there's never been a case where an extraterrestrial came down and harmed a human being. Right. In this whole CE5 events, jury's still out on those. I will admit I downloaded the app and I'm going to give it a try. I know it takes some work to make that happen, but I was willing to spend the $10 to give it a try. Right. So I kind of believe Dr. Greer more so. I think he's more sincere about it. He's not coming out and saying that they're a problem, where everybody on the other side of the camp is. So I guess that's kind of my feeling on the whole thing with the Cosmic Hoax, is what they're talking about is the whole thing is a hoax. Right now, he's not saying that the UFOs or the UAPs that they're calling it now, like I'm an old dude. It's been UFOs for 45 years. It's going to continue to be UFOs to me. I don't view them as a threat, because if they were going to be a threat, it seems to me they would have been a threat a long time ago.
So this is kind of reel me in, guys, if I'm being too paranoid. But so that's kind of, I keep hearing that lately, and I heard it from the documentary multiple times from multiple people saying that that's kind of the philosophy you can get behind. But what worries me is we could say that about, the US military or like the UN or something like that, like some horrible first world mega force could easily have wiped us out in this way or that way. And who knows, maybe they have if we get into Tartaria or something, you know?
So just jump in very, very quickly, more specific. Sorry, brother, just to address Ron and Camden. Before you guys came in, basically, I touched on the fact that in my humble opinion, I believe that certainly, I believe Mr. Greer, the principle of the message is there. I believe that he has far less, I guess you could say, metaphorical strings than Lou Elizondo does. I think with Mr. Elizondo, he wants to say more, but he really can't. That not just because of the NDA, but also because I really think he fears for the safety of his family and what have you. But my main concern, guys, was that I felt as though, and please tell me if you have a different view, Mr. Greer was painting it far too black and white. Do I think that we should take a friendly approach? Absolutely, absolutely. At the same time, though, I do think that there are certain species here that do not have our best intentions in mind. However, I think something or someone or a multitude of species have been protecting us, if you will. So I took issue more so with the documentary about how Mr. Greer painted it as a more of a black and white yes or no. They're all good, they're all bad. That was sort of the feeling I got from it. Now, again, that's just me, right? I could be wrong. The only thing, though, that I took issue with was why couldn't Dr. Greer say, okay, you know, there's different factions of them, if you will. Not all the Greys are bad. Not all the Greys are good. Some are just, you know, malevolent. Some are benevolent. You name it, right? So again, just wanted to touch on that and get your guys, Ron, sir, your take on that.
Yeah, just like humans, right? You got good humans, you got bad humans, right? So, so we've been, and so it's no different, right? And in my view, like we're descended from the extraterrestrials. Like I'm a pretty firm believer in that. I've done a lot of research on this. Like I'm almost 60 years old. I've been into this stuff a long time, and so yeah, I do agree with you, Dave, that Greer does take kind of a black and white approach to it. You know, I'm more of a gray area guy. Like I like to say, okay, well, it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be something in the middle, right? The problem I have with Lou Elizondo, and I really shouldn't say I have a problem with him because I've been following him for quite some time, is this how now all of a sudden, after we were promised disclosure, right, in the last COVID bill, we were supposed to get the disclosure, I think on June 1st, right? Senator Marco Rubio was supposed to take care of that, right? We basically
June 25th, still have, I believe.
Yeah, or something like that. But bottom line is we didn't get it, right? We get little snippets. We get a lot of redacted documents that, you know, you might as well not even read them because they're redacted so heavily. Yeah. And so we were led down a path of roses and ended up in poison ivy, which is an old term I always like to say, right? And now all of a sudden, you know, we're hearing stories of Project Bluebeam, which, you know, for the listeners is a conspiracy theory that Project Bluebeam is the government's going to come after us with a fake alien attack. And it's just another way for them to control us, right? Because they're not controlling us with the Corona narrative anymore. And they're going to try to control us with the climate change agenda, which there's a lot of people on both sides of that, right? And then now we got the cyber polygon theory that Klaus Schwab is pushing, where we're going to have a massive grid breakdown. So we have all this fear thrown at us. So now I'm thinking maybe they're keeping Project Bluebeam like in the shadows for when all this other stuff doesn't work, right? So once you know, guys that do what we do, us podcasters, like we're all familiar with what Project Bluebeam is, right? And it's kind of like the movie, what was it, The Fifth Wave? They did this movie, and it ended up being that it was a false attack, and it was actually the government that was putting the attack on.
Oh, right? Now I actually want to see it.
yeah. It was actually not a great movie, but it's not bad either. Okay. But the story is there, right?
Yeah, and plot, it's a good movie.
Yeah, the plot. So now you got Lou Elizondo, like you see his face on every single television show.
Yep.
Like every morning program, every news program, he's like literally everywhere pushing his narrative. And to me, that's like, okay, you're pushing too hard. Why are you pushing so hard?
Sorry, Rob, if I could, Ron, sorry. The question I think to add to your question as well, and you also might be saying this too, is who's letting him on? You know what I mean? Because clearly you know probably far better than I do, sir, the intelligence apparatus to try to prevent the actual push for the real truth is clearly there. Like as we saw in the Cosmic Hoax documentary with, when they covered Robert Bigelow, there was a guy with actual money to burn, with real time on his hands, nothing to do. And it just goes to show over 100 million in liquid cash was spent. And then we could see I don't want to say who it was because, we don't know for certain, but the intelligence apparatus sort of pushed, 5, 6, 7 different figures to encircle him metaphorically and feed him these lies, right? So I feel like that same apparatus is in control of Mr. Elizondo, to be honest, because how could this guy go on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, like without anyone controlling his words, right?
So,
right. Yeah. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
That's all right. Real quick, I want to kind of stretch this out a little bit because I feel like this, honestly, in my opinion, just after 20 odd years of loving all the UFO topics, all the subtopics and everything about them, I feel like the topic itself needs to be more broad. I feel like there's other aspects that there's other areas of our, call it fringe thinking, call it independent, seeking, whatever. There's other areas that, if are true, change this whole picture as well. And I know that it's not, it's more hypothetical to think about, but I mean, just take, for instance, the idea that people like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and the guys that redated the Sphinx and with the John Anthony West, those guys, their revolution is now taking place. They were laughed at for decades, and now they have skeptics like Michael Shermer apologizing to them on Twitter and everything. Their revolution is happening. Shit keeps getting older, and it's being confirmed. History is a lie, and it's all over everywhere. This is old news now, you know what I mean? But so that has lifted off, you know what I mean? And I feel the same thing is kind of happening in this broader spectrum of what's called electric universe theory.
That's what I was about to get into. Yep.
That's awesome. What a cool synchronicity, because the only reason why I want to bring it into that is just because it really could completely shift the topic of UFOs entirely, not necessarily to make it real or not real or anything like that. The fact that, so this is what I wanted to jump into too. It's what they're talking around, Dave. I mentioned this to you online when we were talking, and I was like, I'll dive into this a little further. Is that this is going to sound a little wacky, but electric universe theory is getting more acceptable. They are obsessed with this tech, but mostly about why this tech is special and what makes this tech so special that I could be dancing around with electric universe theory. That would be gravity. The anti-gravity aspect of it is what makes it so unbelievably amazing and revolutionary. And that's what they're focused on. Now, fine, we can run with that all day. We can say that, good, we're at the Star Trek phase and we get to see all the crazy shit we grew up with. Isn't that convenient? But I don't know, man. It seems equally plausible that something else is going on, and they're covering other things up. Just like I'm having Dave Weiss on this week as well to talk flat Earth. I'm willing to do it, man. I'm not a flat earther, but I want to hear, I want to see, I want to go through it, because I also think there's something to that. I don't know if it's what they think it is, and David thinks it is, but I think we're being lied to in general, for sure. About
okay,
space.
Andy, listen.
Just to throw that wild shit into the pot here.
When you talk to David Weiss, right? Like, because I'm agnostic on that whole deal, right? But I find myself reading about it more. I find myself studying about it more, because it's just like anything. Like, what kind of a conspiracy theorist or podcaster that's in the conspiracy game would I be if I didn't look into it? Right. If I was just, oh yeah, no, that's crazy. Okay. So I was a guest host on The Dangerous World one night, and we had David on, and he lays out a pretty compelling story.
Right.
He has his own app that you really got to check out. It's really cool, and it shows how everything works. Now, I'm not saying I believe in flat Earth, but I'm not saying I don't believe in it either, because after exposing and after all these lies have been exposed, and just what you said, Andy, everything that we've been told in history, and everything that the Sphinx is dated to this, the pyramids are dated to that, the Mayan temples are dated to this. We're all finding out that this stuff is much older, even to bring up the theory of Tartaria, right? So we're learning all this stuff. So really at this point, like nothing is off the table for me. Like I'm an open-minded person. So you will have a really interesting discussion with Mr. Weiss. Yeah.
I just wanted to say very quickly to add to, again, what you were saying, Ron, as well as Andy, with regards to the electric universe theory. It's interesting because I don't know if you guys, I think most of you probably know about Uri Geller. I believe that's how you say his name.
Yes, Uri Geller.
Uri Geller.
Or Uri, I'm not sure.
Right. He's the Israeli, I guess you could say, psychic. He can allegedly bend, forks and spoons with his mind, things like that. Anyways, he recently came out, I think publicly last week, saying that he was summoned by Wernher von Braun back in the day to go to a classified NASA facility underground. And everyone dismissed it, yada, yada, yada. And then he provided images of him with Wernher von Braun on this facility. So then all of a sudden,
Holy shit.
Yes. So then, and I have the photographs as well. You could see Wernher von Braun in his later years, a little bit older. But anyways, the point is that he claimed he was shown a metallurgy, if you will, which again seems to be the constant thing. They shoot down. Jacques Vallée mentioned it. The army has shot down pieces of UFO before. This is not really, again, they'll never admit it, but it's pretty damn obvious at this point. But what stuck out to me was that Uri Geller said last week, I believe the article was in The Guardian, if I'm not mistaken, that Wernher von Braun told him, held up a piece of the metallurgy and said, Yuri, I need you to help me figure out what this is, because the metallurgy it feels like it's alive and breathing. Now, I don't know to what extent this could be elements from another dimension, if this is an extremely advanced version of what we would perceive to be nanotech, I'm not sure. But I think, again, it ties in with the electric universe theory in the sense that when people get abducted, some people have said they've been able to actually not be abducted by mentally telling these aliens, you cannot abduct me. Now, I find parallels in that with regards to the paranormal side of things, right? When demons and spirits, for those that believe in it, try to take over one's body, you tell that spirit, demon, or energy, you cannot take over me, or things like this. I find parallels there. So clearly, again, as you were saying, Ron, as well, I think people are looking at things as, paranormal, flat earth, UFO, this and that. We got to look at it synergetically. And at the same time, we got to take a step back and say, this holographic technology, they have technology where, the inside of their craft is larger in terms of like actual square footage than what you see on the outside. That's pocket dimensions. That's using pseudoscientific electromagnetic, what's the term? What was it? Sorry, guys, had a bit of a brain fart, but you see where I'm getting at. Holograms, physical manifestations of holograms, right? So again, we see recently, I did an episode just yesterday where more and more I'm starting to realize that, again, this is just my personal opinion, but in my research, I'm finding a lot of these aliens, whether it's gray, reptilian, or different insectoid, you name it, a lot of them seem to be disguised with holograms on their face and things like that. Now, again, some of them are much larger than when they, in real form than their human form, which is another thing with the electric universe theory. I'm not sure, again, how that would work. That's super advanced stuff. But I think my main point is that it has to be put together, not because we want it to be, but because it simply is, if you will. But again, I could be wrong.
I'm going to just touch real quick on something, then I want to let Camden and Eric jump in. Eric, I know you don't have too much more time. So you touched on something, Dave, there where you talked about the paranormal and the UFO situation where it's almost like this command that you do in order to stop the process from happening, So
and that's not just my work as well. That's Jacques Vallée's work.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's a good thing to talk about. And what it reminds me of is everything I've learned from Eastern mysticism, and also what you would call the New Age, where it's manifestation and affirmations. I mean, people might call it, you could even look into sigil magic in a sense, in the way thy will be done. Like this whole thing is, I mean, again, talking about that synergistic need for a holistic view of this whole problem. That's why I think it's so convoluted, because I think I said it on the roundtable too. The aliens are the gatekeepers of the total giving up the ghost of this whole experience we're in my opinion. I think whatever's really going on behind the curtain is enough to give away everything else that's going on. In my opinion. And so I just wanted to throw that in there real quick, because I do feel like it's connected to thoughts about people doing magic and this new age whole. It's not new, of course, it's the most ancient shit in the world, but you know what I mean, it's all connected there too, you know. So yeah, somebody jump in.
Well, I got like a couple things on all of that, right? Electric Universe to me,
you guys see Camden's face right there, see how excited he looked?
Yeah. Electric Universe to me is like massively credible. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Wal Thornhill, maybe. His work is like Sapphire Project.
Dude, Sapphire, Thunderbolt. I'm trying to get them on my show. It's
right. I mean, absolutely. He's a busy dude. He making a star in your garage. Like, I mean, these are real things that are completely scientifically doable. Another really good way to get into Electric Universe is Ari Oslin, Paradigm Threat.
Previous guest of the show.
Yeah, he's I mean, he's more in depth than anyone I've ever seen really get into this whole thing. But it's credible. It makes sense in the electromagnetic sense of how we know now the universe works. And I've more and more, I'm an agnostic person too. Like, I'll read anything, not necessarily believe it, but so much lines up, so much makes sense. And then next thing I want to say, you talking to can't remember his name, it's slipping me right now, about flat earth. Something I would maybe try to bring up with him is concave earth, if that's something that he could lend anything to. Because
is that the theory where the earth and all planets in fact can only be formed in the torus shape, where there's always a vortex?
Yes, sort of, right? Like literally like a golf ball. And we would we would be in a divot. And it gets into Antarctica is actually the ice wall around the outside of our divot. The Arctic is the ice in the middle. The moon, if you take I think it's infrared, it might be UV light spectrum, but it seems to be the land masses on the moon, if you get into that moon isn't even real theory, is a reflection of the land masses on the earth.
Heard that.
And so much of this concave earth makes a little bit credible sense to me too, and it makes me think that the flat earth push was kind of like a half truth, because it's like, yeah, you're right, it's not a ball at all, but it's not flat, but like the people that get into flat earth can get into it because there's that science there. Those weird anomalies make sense because it's definitely closer to flat than it is closer to round.
I do have something I'd like to add to that.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Camden.
absolutely.
Okay. So when you talk about concave earth, right, like in that we all could be like the surface of the earth could be like a golf ball with all the divots, right? So, we're all probably familiar with the Admiral Byrd diary, that it hasn't been vetted, that it's been, that it's verified that it's true or not. However, he talked about the concave earth. And when he did that interview, he said that there's vast lands beyond the poles, right?
Yeah.
And he also talked about how he actually flew into the North Pole. And, you guys know the story, and probably all the listeners probably know the story as well. But basically, we can just run through it, right? So he's flying for 1,500 miles. He flies into now he's flying into over grassy lands, tropical lands. He's seeing animals, and his plane gets overtaken and brought down in, and he's talking to a higher force being, right? So that kind of lends into the what you call in the concave Earth, because what he's saying is that the North Pole is concave, the South Pole is concave. Right. Okay. So now, and that would make sense when you talk about concave Earth, because if we are, say, in a divot, and the outside of the divot is actually the ice wall of Antarctica, right? That would also make it plausible that these lands, these vast lands beyond the poles that Admiral Byrd speaks about, could be lands in another divot. Right? Does that make sense? I mean, yes, exactly. I mean, that kind of adds to that theory. So when Andy has David Weiss on, he's going to have to discuss that with him. I'm sorry, David, go ahead.
Sorry, my deepest apologies, Ron. I just wanted to ask to what you're just saying here as well. Would you subscribe to the pocket dimension theory that not only would Earth be, concave like a golf ball, but within certain certain rivets, if you will, it's much larger internally than what you see flying in? Which could explain why and how a lot of these creatures and beings, whether they're self-aware or not, have been able to preserve themselves and live so freely down there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theory, right? And so even if you take the size of the Earth, like say we're on a ball Earth, right? Like we've been taught our whole life. If you take that mass, that area, and you go inside of that, that's actually more room than the surface of the Earth. Absolutely. Right? Because you have the outer surface of the inside of the Earth, plus you have the whole inside of the Earth. Now, I'm not saying that the whole Earth is hollow. And I'm a big hollow Earth guy. Like, it's a great subject. I love that subject. I read about it. And it's almost like, and I even asked David Weiss this once on when we had him on the show, that if you believe in flat Earth, can you believe in hollow Earth? He went on and kind of described how those possibly, right? So Andy, you've got your work cut ahead of you with him, and I think you're going to be really surprised with what you hear come out of David Weiss. But like your theory, Dave, is like the movie, Will Ferrell's movie Land of the Lost, when they go inside this pyramid, and he goes in and it's this great big huge room, and he goes, wow, that's an efficient use of space right there. Yeah. Right. So that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like, so we have an object that's say 100 square feet on the outside, but it's like 500 square feet on the inside.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Exactly.
So Eric, what you got to add after you want to jump into the deep end? The
Eric's been awful quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I've been quiet because I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. I have no idea. I've never heard of electric universe. I've never heard of concave Earth. Flat Earth. I've obviously heard of. Who hasn't heard of flat Earth?
Of course, I'm over here. Interesting.
I'm over here googling Tartaria and shit, and like I saw Tartaria was like a really interesting thing. If I could just touch on that for a second, because I googled it. When you tweeted something about it or tweeted at somebody, and I was like, what the fuck is this? What is he talking about? And I Googled it, and like all I could find was like something about tablets. And I was like, this isn't getting me anywhere whatsoever. But then I searched for it on DuckDuckGo and like actually found relevant information.
That'll work. Yeah.
That was my very first experience with DuckDuckGo actually giving me what I was looking for.
Cool.
That was fun. But yeah, I don't have too terribly much to add because I don't know anything about any of this stuff. It's really
actually, I think, sorry, Eric, brother, I think you do have a lot to add. And the reason I say that is because, and I really do mean this, from an external perspective, I think it would be great to hear from the outside looking in. Here we are, four guys that, tend to, we're delving into all this and all that, and you don't know as much, and that's totally cool. But what do you see coming, as you observe us discuss this? And I ask that because I think that's a good metaphor for the relativity to the rest of the population of Earth. You know what I mean? How ready can one be if you're not interested? If it's time to know about the aliens, but you don't care for the tech, you don't care, you're just kind of like, okay, tell me the quick bullet points and let's get this over with. What do you see looking in?
That's kind of why I bring you on here, man. Give us the other perspective.
I think like I get very hung up on the why of things. like as it concerns like stuff like flat Earth, for example. Like, why is no one telling us the truth about the Earth? Like, I get very hung up on that, and like I can't come to any sort of satisfactory conclusion about why we wouldn't be being told that the Earth is flat. And that is my hang up on a lot of these sorts of fringe topics. It's just like I don't get like big picture why anyone would care enough to have such a massive coordinated effort to get people to believe one thing when there's an alternate reality. Now, I think that it's real. Like when it comes to extraterrestrials, that is kind of like, it's fun to talk about and it's interesting, and people, we fantasize about like what's it like on other planets, like how advanced could we get, like how could it make our lives so much easier. So I think that it resonates a little bit more with folks, whereas like Andy, you and I were talking a bit about like the moon, like almost like phase shifting, like the line that goes over the moon. I don't know.
Lunar wave, yeah.
Yeah, the lunar wave. Like we were talking about that thing, and like that was very interesting. And it's like, I don't know, I find it very, very fascinating, this world that y'all live in, where like there's so much information about so much stuff that like for me it's a little bit overwhelming. Like I can only take a little bit at a time. But like I think that it's like one of the few places where people are still actually asking questions. Like I certainly am not one of those people that think it's like you like dismiss these things and never, like I don't have time to think about it. Like what's the point? Like for sure, no. I love to be presented with evidence and like trying to pick it apart and like find faults and arguments. Like that's a lot of fun for me.
Eric, brother, if I could ask very quickly, is there a particular element of any of this that genuinely frightens you? And I ask that because, again, like you were just saying right now, no disrespect to yourself, but us, Ron, Andy, we jump in and we just jump right into the documents, this, that, and we talk about it like this blah blah blah. Is there any part of it from the outside looking in that scares you, like genuinely? Because there's certain things that frighten me, totally honest. But
yeah.
I
mean, I candidly, no, not really. But that is only because I place myself as like super insignificant in the grand scheme. So like I don't feel like I personally have anything to fear. That being said, I think that it is very, the coordinated efforts that governments can take to get people to believe whatever they want, propaganda campaigns, CIA's financing cartels, all of these sorts of things that like at one point people were like, the CIA doesn't finance the cartel, but it's like the CIA financed the cartel, like,
yeah,
like these sorts of things, and how those, like, if you extrapolate on that, and you think of the capabilities of what a coordinated machine such as a government could do, if you start to go down that road, I think that you very quickly find something that you should fear for humanity at large. But I think that on a person-to-person basis, we're all so insignificant that we don't really have anything to fear until you find that piece of information and those documents and start having those conversations, which I am not having. So I don't really have to think about it. Where like if I was as educated as you all are on some of the stuff that you've been talking about, like I might be a little bit sketched out if I stumbled upon something that nobody was talking about that like really clicked for me and really made sense. And it's just like, and I had to start asking, like, why isn't anybody talking about this? And then I was the one that was talking about it. I'd probably be a little bit scared. That would be scary to me, I think.
We see that reflected in all of our heroes and all of our movies and TV shows. It's always that person. It's always that coming of age Indiana Jones discovery action hero.
Well, you know what I was thinking too, and I've been thinking this for the past handful of days as well. In the grand scheme of things, assuming that these extraterrestrials, regardless of which species, race, you name it, if they've introduced themselves to humanity at, you know, multiple times, at different times, assuming there's been, you know, multiple resets, if you want to call them resets, if you will, in the grand scheme of things, this whole, you know, 70 to 80 year time frame, let's just start with Roswell. We could argue it's been way before that, but relative to, you know, modern history, it's not really, you know, long term in the grand scheme of it all. Right now, the other thing I wanted to mention very quickly as well, and I brought this up on my show a little while ago too, regarding cosmic hoax. One thing I forgot to say earlier was with Stephen Greer specifically. He had, you know, how he said, you know, they're all good intention, they're goodwill and things like that. What do we make of the scriptures and writings of many thousands of years ago of, you know, 8 sky gods, as they're called, coming down from above and ruling over different quadrants of what we now know to be Egypt, right? I'm not saying we should apply that mentality to how we view aliens now or how we may view them. What I'm saying though is that clearly there's been some type of hierarchical, I guess you could say, dominatrix event at some point, right?
See, I would jump in there and just from my perspective, which is way out in psychedelica land, where like I've had experiences where this entire physical existence comes into severe questioning, and the story I tell myself in my head and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how many voices on here might agree there or
oh no, I'm right there with you, right there.
Cool. With you. So because of that, that's why I'm open to talking about flat earth with someone. I'm willing to look at all the stuff about hollow earth and the idea that space isn't what it seems, because shit, my inner world wasn't what it seemed.
Right.
And you know what I mean? It was a prank I was playing on myself, for Christ's sake. So as above, so below, because we haven't really, you know, busted into that area of thinking, the hermetics and the ancient stuff, but honestly, it all plays into that. And, you know, there's plenty of versions of those ancient gods that go, that follow the path, like the Sumerian kings list, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. And we've seen it on Ancient Aliens and other documentaries. I have watched countless. I'm surprised I don't have like a basketball jersey with Enki on it or something, you know, because I got
or Sukalos. Hey, I don't mean to interrupt.
Wait, real quick. Just let me finish this one part, because I got really sucked into all that and I'm totally into it. And it could be the mimicry again, but there's other ways of describing all those things, like the Sumerian kings list. People have mapped it out on like a frequency scale and shit like that. And they've gone into, and when you go into that area, then you start talking about all like the crazy new science data that's actually happening. It seems really woo woo, but it's all involving energy and geometry in the world and all that kind of stuff. So right. Well, what do you think of that? Yeah, go ahead.
Super quick to let Ron jump in. This is, again, what you're saying, Andy. This is all the stuff that I think all of you guys will agree that the institutions we've normally respected are not confirming nor denying. So again, it's, you know,
they put a lot of it in plain sight as well.
Right.
They like to do.
It's sort of like that
ritual.
That scene before I hand it off to Ron. It's like that scene in the Netflix series Unabomber. Again, we can argue about how accurate that was. The point is this: he's looking at a whiteboard. The guy trying to find Ted Kaczynski. He's looking at a whiteboard, and he takes a step back and he goes, "Holy shit!" He goes, "We've been looking, the FBI. We've been looking for the things that are there. What about if the evidence is the non-evidence, the things that are not there?" So he then turns it into a visual on the whiteboard. And I think it's a great depiction of that, right? Okay, let's write down the things we know about. And I think we could apply that here too. What are the things that are not the things we don't know about that we could just make up, but what are the holes that are not being filled? You know what I mean? What are the holes?
Right.
But anyways.
And that's a good way. That's a good, like, I'm a little bit of an amateur detective myself. Me and my brother, we actually on the side, we work on cold cases. Oh, cool. We've got some famous cold cases up here in New Hampshire where I'm at. But anyways, I just wanted to touch on something that, Dave, that you had mentioned about Cosmic Hoax, the movie, because that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. And this is a real simple analogy, right? So Stephen Greer is coming and saying, okay, you know, they're not a danger to us. they're peaceful, they're this and that, we've never had any problem with them or whatever. Okay. Right. Take a human being like myself, right? So I'm an easygoing guy. I can sit and discuss things with you. I can try to have a rational discussion with an irrational person. Like I work really hard to not like flip my lid sometimes when I'm having a conversation, even in conversations you get on social media, when you do a post and then somebody jumps on you and they're just flat out not agreeing with you. Okay, so if you don't agree with me, just go away, dude. Okay, whatever. I don't have time to argue with you, but if I'm provoked, that you might get a different outcome. So I kind of take that as I'm an easygoing guy. I don't really want to have a confrontation with you, but if you come at me, if you come at me, to harm a family member or harm my spaceship, so to speak, right? You're going to get probably a different reaction. Right. So for Stephen Greer to come in and say that all of these extraterrestrials are peaceful, on the onset, he's probably right on that. But what did Stephen Hawkins warn us? Stephen Hawkins warned us, don't be out there trying to find extraterrestrials. You're better off if they don't know we're here. Right. So that goes back to that, right? Like these extraterrestrials might have a different intent for us. They might have a harmful intent to us, like all these movies that we've seen with the massive amount of predictive programming that we've seen come out of Hollywood in the last 10, 15 years or even 20 years, like take Independence Day, like that's a huge one, right? Like so these aliens came down and just wanted to clean house and leave. District 9, same thing, right? Yeah. So do I think that all extraterrestrials are easy, peace loving, want to come down and smoke dope with everybody and drink a couple of White Claws? Yeah, I don't think so. Right. But I think awesome. I think maybe if they're treated well, then maybe we're not going to have a problem with them because their technology is far superior to our technology, right? Even though we believe that some of this technology that we're seeing now, and this goes back to Wernher von Braun on his deathbed saying, listen, they're going to come at you with an alien attack. Don't believe it. That's all our stuff.
Oh, I 100% agree. I was going to say very quickly, it's sort of like you were saying, Ron, I do fundamentally agree with you in the sense that regardless of their agenda, whether it's, people say, how come if they wanted to invade, they would have done it by now. We could discuss, because what we do affects them. Ultimately, it's not that simple, different timelines because of the way they perceive time is differently and things like that. But ultimately, I fundamentally agree with you, Ron, in the sense that, yes, exactly. In terms of to address the first part, like with social media and all that, I'm all for trying to open one's perspective. But if you're going to be a bad faith actor, or if you're going to do something out of bad faith, it's just a total waste of time, right? With that being said too, though, at the same time, I also think I agree with you, Ron, in the sense that when you look at the big picture of it all, I think that it's very similar to when you're eating dinner, if you have a cat or a dog and they jump up on the table and if you just got them, if they're a new pet, you kind of say, you pick them up, you go, no, and you try to tell them get off the table, and you do it a few times over before you get more strict with them because they're new at it, right? I feel like that's what the aliens have done with us as humans. More specifically with things like Project A119, when the US Army tried to send nukes to the moon and it didn't even make it to the moon. A UFO literally shot a bunch of beams. We have footage of this, shot a bunch of beams at it. Not this particular instance, but it's been, nuclear testing sites. Yeah. And the missile just drops into the ocean or whatever, right? Or into space or what have you. So I think that that's what they're doing with us. Honestly, I got to give it to them. Assuming there's good ones, I'd like to think there are. They've been way more patient than I would have been.
Okay, well, I think, in everything, there's a correlation between the use of nuclear weapons from the United States and now, since then, massive amounts of UFO activity, right? So, so I mean, it's been established that the extraterrestrials don't like the use of nuclear weapons. They don't like us using nuclear weapons. And Roswell was what, in 47, if I'm not 47. Mistaken. Okay, what year did we detonate the atom bombs over Japan?
40.
Right.
45.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah.
1945. Well, I mean, so right after that, so now they're saying, oh my God, they've opened up Pandora's box. they have nuclear weapons. Even though they were hydrogen bombs, but it's still the same aspect. It's still the same theory as a nuclear weapon, right? So now, oh boy, okay, we got to go shut this down like right now. We got to go down there because where are these UFOs showing up? Where's Roswell? Yeah. Roswell is near Los Alamos, right? Yeah. And that's where they built the atomic bombs, right? So we've got lots of accounts where they've flown over and shut down missile systems. They've shut down missile silos. They've shut down all kinds of stuff. Like what you said, Dave, how they shot that nuclear missile right out of the sky. And I've actually seen more than one video of similar events, right? So we've established, like you say, we're going to put this up on a whiteboard. What do we know?
Yeah.
Like we know that their flying capability far superior to ours. Yeah. We know that they don't like nuclear weapons and they don't like the use of nuclear weapons. And that's why now there's a lot of theories where people say, listen, you never have to worry about having a nuclear war or assured mutual destruction on this earth because the extraterrestrials are not going to allow that to happen.
If I could just jump in real quick, I can't help but wonder if we would run a double-blind test, or maybe not double blind. I don't know what the term is. Maybe just single blind, and
literally lobbing missiles at each other.
No, have everybody in one of our nuclear facilities completely unaware of the op that was about to be run on them by tech that we have either re-engineered or found ourselves, whatever, as a UFO coming to deactivate the nuclear facility. Like we would totally do that to our own soldiers. I think, you know what I mean?
I think because of the compartmentalization, I think currently that's the case. I mean,
yeah, maybe.
Very quickly, to reference Cosmic Hoax and what Ron was saying, if we take a look at in that documentary, A Witness, when he was 9 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, literally a month after our first test, right?
A month after the first test, this guy was 9 years old, if you guys remember this part of the documentary, and he said that he was with his friend, a UFO crashed. Because they were so young, they ran to it because they were going to try to help these aliens. They were gray, very tall, very long arms, thin legs, things like that. And they were communicating with the two kids telepathically, and the feelings and the messages they got were anxious, we're very far from home. We came here to investigate because of what you're doing with the nukes. Now, again, to what you were saying, Ron, I think it's very similar to how we can relate it to, let's just say Star Trek, for example. You know how the beginning of each Star Trek, let's just use Star Trek The Next Generation. It would start with Patrick Stewart's character saying, star date, da-da-da-da-da. We're going to investigate this because this has come up on our radar. I think it's the same exact thing. With that being said, though, I do think that when we split the atom and we launch a nuke at any time, at any place, I truly do believe, pardon my English, it fucks with other dimensions way more than this one.
Yeah.
Hey, Camden, you want to jump in here?
I got a couple things. I wasn't going to interrupt.
No problem.
So straight away on nukes, I do think they shake everything way more than just our ground, right? They've got to have a cosmic if you split an atom, matter is neither created nor destroyed. Does that, if you split this atom over here somewhere else in the galaxy, it's paired atom symbiotically, whatever, does that do some expanding growth? You know what I mean? Like, do things change because we're splitting atoms here somewhere else? And it's very possible for them to show up immediately upon these nuclear tests. Even they were in the dock. They were screaming. They were in pain not because they even had crashed, so to speak, but because maybe they crashed because of the nearness to the atom bomb test, right? It's aftershock, it's after wave, even not just chemically and stuff, but like energetically. It really interesting to think about.
So it kind of messed with their aircraft,
right?
Is what you're thinking,
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
yeah. So because we don't know if radiation or splitting the atom, I mean, we don't know if that even messes with the parallel universe thing. We don't know if that causes things like the whole theory of what CERN did, right? The whole theory that the CERN, they discovered the God particle, and the world ended in 2012, and ever since then we've been shifted to a different parallel universe, right?
Is that why it's just nostalgia after nostalgia now?
Right. Yeah. No one can think of anything new.
Look at the increase in the Mandela effect. I mean, I see it myself. I'm 57 years old, and I'm looking at stuff now that I know for a fact was not like that 25 or 30 years
right.
ago.
So that sounds like Tartaria, doesn't it?
Well, what I'm saying is when CERN lit that collider up and it collided, it could have the same effect. Could nuke weapons have the same effect, like in the atmosphere, and was screwing up these UFOs, and that's why these UFOs are crashing their nuclear sites. I mean, I know it's a far out theory, but I mean, it's legit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the use of nuclear weapons like screws them up, and maybe this is why they don't want us using them.
Right.
And not only that, but because they know that it's extremely dangerous, and if we use nuclear weapons, that could wipe out humanity. Because we have, you talk about ancient history. We have all these sites in the Middle East that are still giving off radiation.
Yeah.
Like we have these old stories. Was it the Bhagavad Gita story where they talked about how there was a nuclear war?
Bhagavad Gita, yeah.
Yeah. So and they're going there and they're picking up like radiation. And they got accounts in these ancient scrolls or tablets or whatever that, there was some massive war. And now, they're picking up all this radiation, radiation lasts for literally thousands of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, maybe, you go back to history, like the extraterrestrials, I believe they've been coming here for tens of thousands of years. And they've probably already witnessed this. And they're like, okay, so we saw what happened last time you guys did this. We're not
into it again.
Yeah, we're not into that happening. So, we're not going to let you do that, because unlike most people that are alive today, they learn from history, right? People today don't, people, in younger generations, no offense to you guys, but I know you guys are, the exception to the rule. Kids don't know history. They don't know jack shit about history.
Yeah.
I would contend that we never have. I would say that my grandparents and my parents got hit the hardest, in my opinion, with the propaganda, because this generation needs to be the strong ones against whatever the hell's coming.
Because history is being rewritten now, right? Because
so they needed the parents to reinforce that big time.
All the history that we learned growing up, a lot of it probably, 25% of it is probably accurate. The other 75% is probably total horseshit.
And how ironic too, right? That we're living in an age of all these resources. And again, it just, unfortunately, this, I guess, goes more towards the focus of propaganda, intelligence, and maybe even the curation of frequencies in music and radio and stuff. But look how ironic it is that we now have, I don't want to say all the availability, but certainly much more than, even, I would say even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And look, everyone would rather be on, TikTok, if you will, than like you're saying, Ron, read through these trove of documents that arguably is some of the biggest stuff, at least in our lifetime, right? Yeah. And people would
but people don't have time for that, Dave. They got to see what's going on with The Bachelor. They got to see what's going on whatever freaking show that they're watching, right? They don't take the time to do that.
Yeah.
And that's sad. So what you're getting at, Dave, is that we have all this information now literally at our fingertips, right? And people are getting dumber.
Yep.
Which is
it's incredible.
I'm not saying because there's all this new info out there that it's all true. I think one of the hardest, I think back in the day, it was more, and you'd probably know better than myself, Ron, it was hard to find the info. Now it's easy to find the info. It's just a matter of brushing through what's nonsense and what, what's legit, have you, but people are not even putting the effort in. I mean, quick case in point, I think it was 7 or 8 days ago, maybe a little more than that, the Australian National Archives were recently declassified 58 pages, I believe, pertaining to UFOs.
Oh no, it was like 1,500.
Oh, 1,500, excuse me. Then,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And we see all these documents, and they're basically saying these are not speculation intelligence cables. These are Australian intelligence, which again, if Australia could only work so closely with the US. Oh, wait a minute.
I wish.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Saying that since Roswell, the CIA has been interested in UFOs more than nukes, more than anything. So,
Yeah. So the thing is now, okay, so at my age, if you can imagine, I've been in this game a long time. I was interested in UFO and cryptozoology, literally when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. And that's a big thanks to the original In Search of television show, right? That come on once a week.
Yeah.
So I had to actually go to libraries.
That's
right?
what I
Go to libraries, look stuff up. And this stuff was not readily available. And I can remember like the Scholastic Book Fair, like when I was a kid looking through that, and my mom's like, "Oh, what do you want to get for books?" And I'm like, "I don't see anything here I'm interested in." And it was like mostly mail order then. Like I remember mail ordering Zachariah Sitchin's series of books, like way back when. And it was a big deal for me to go to the bookstore, and then I would and it was like, oh yeah, that's kind of a weird book. That's kind of out there for somebody your age, right? So when the internet came to be, and then when Google came back, when Google was actually good and it wasn't censoring everything, and to add to actually what Eric said, and he's 100% correct, right? You can, and I showed this to somebody up in the studio last week. I brought up Google and I brought up DuckDuckGo, which I use DuckDuckGo more than anything. And not that they're 100% accurate either, but I put them up. We searched the same exact keywords, totally different results. Right. So Eric, now Google is, Google. Real quick,
Eric, I know you had to get going around this time. Do you want to? So, I just wanted to say thanks for joining us up until this point. I'm sure your brain is exploding at this point.
A little bit. I've absorbed a lot. I do want to thank you guys though for bearing with me as we in explaining so much to me. In closing, I just want to say that I don't think it's a good idea to trust anybody who speaks in absolutes. So
agree.
Bear that in mind. And also, when the most powerful people are threatened with the exposure of something more powerful than them that comes from another cosmic realm, I think it's important to consider exactly what it is they're going to do with that.
That's beautiful.
I think that's what we're headed for. So
that was well said. Well said. I just kind of want to take a step back. So Eric, thank you for joining us. You drop out whenever you need to.
I'm going to take off right now. Thanks so much.
All right, see you later.
All right, take care, Eric.
Yeah.
So let's kind of take a breather for a second here, and we have a lot of different perspectives so far on this whole topic, and Greer especially. And I haven't heard enough from Camden yet, though. I want to hear. I definitely want to hear more from his perspective and see where we can take this. And as depending on what time you guys have to go, it's fine by me. But
I just wanted to jump in very quickly, and unfortunately in the next 3-4 minutes I'm probably going to have to jet. However, I do want to say that I'd be more than glad to come on anytime, and it was a pleasure meeting you, Ron, sir.
You are always welcome on here, Dave. Yeah, man.
And I do
thank you always for coming.
Well, thank you so much for having me, brother. I do want to say though that everything that I probably will end up saying, Camden will say for me. We literally we think that well. So
yeah, and it was good to finally meet you, Dave and Camden. And I will be reaching out to you so we can get together and you can maybe join us on the Wicked Planet some night and do a great episode. That would be cool.
Actually, sir, I was gonna ask Andrew for your email. I'd love to have you on our show as well.
Yeah, we're gonna get together. I've been following a bit on you for a while now.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that. That's incredible. And also, Andrew, brother, you've had me on so much, man. I gotta get you on this week, dude.
Sure. Hell, whenever, man. Let me know.
Yeah. Sounds good.
I'd love to talk to you both in depth about crazy shit whenever.
100%. Camden, please, brother, do your thing. I'm probably gonna have to jet, guys.
All right, cool, man.
Take care.
Dave, thank you so much. Find him at Generation Z Podcast.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Camden, you're sticking around. That's cool, man.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Jump on in.
Well, yeah, no, take a breather, take a step back kind of thing you were saying. We got into Unabomber analogy kind of things earlier, right? One of my favorite sayings, I guess you would call it. There really are only three things. There's known knowns, there's known unknowns, and there's unknown unknowns. So I know that I know that. I know that I don't know that, but I don't know what I don't know. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we know that we know things about this whole encompassing, you have we've seen the videos, we've seen the government release docs. We know things we don't know about flat earth or concave earth, hollow earth. But we don't know what we don't know. We have no idea how much else it could be. And so that's something you were asking Eric, you know, things that scare him earlier. It doesn't scare me per se, but it just is like makes me wide-eyed, like, well, I have no idea what anything could be actually. Okay. Flat Earth. You were talking earlier about like they kind of put these things in our face in certain, but Flat Earth, one of the biggest like in our face things, the UN's logo. You ever looked at the UN's logo? It literally it exactly models concave Earth.
Yeah, great example, Camden.
Yeah, and I noticed it. I maybe only like a month ago or so, and I was like, so what made them like? Who picked that logo? What? And I went to literally archives, the very first meeting of the UN, in its transcripts. That is the second thing that they decided. What their logo was. What was the first thing you ask? No transcript says. So what was the first thing that the first UN meeting in New York talked about after World War II? Nobody knows. Well, we know the second thing they did was pick that logo.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, in Flat Earthers bring up that logo like constantly. Like that's their go-to is the UN logo.
Right. I think it even past Flat Earth more so models concave Earth, like we were talking earlier.
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand that a little bit more. So concave is literally the golf ball. So it would be like we're in a pond. So kind of like the flat Earth idea, but there's like shitloads of flat Earths.
Yes. And
okay.
So you could
concave Earths.
a good way to think about it. You go all the way back to like biblical times before people were traveling all over the place. Your world is that small, right? Flat Earth, a fine theory. We were talking about those ancient gods come down, aliens come down, whatever. In the Bible, you know, explicitly it says the Israelites were going through the desert. They had a giant plume of smoke by day and a giant fireball by night. That sounds a lot like UFOs to me, right?
Good.
Yeah. So they were there, and so their teachings, they're like flat Earth, easy enough thing for them to believe until you had, you know, Christopher Columbus go sailing. It really was kind of the model. So now in the propaganda machine, because you have to stipulate it really could have gone back that far. Oh shit, they know it's not flat because they went around. So now we'll say it's a sphere, because even if it's concave, you still can go like around, like just around the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to switch up their model. And so that's kind of where I think that propaganda kept going, right?
Yeah, I like that because we sorry, Ron, real quick. It does seem like in other things, I always find that we're the trend that they are always following. Mm-hmm. Like if you talk about the influence that the elite, or whatever you want to call the hidden hand, is probably a good name for it, has over like the media and celebrities and movies and things like that are constantly coming into our heads. They have such a control over that side of things, you know, so you know that could play a big role in it too, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, so my thought on that, when you talk about Christopher Columbus, when he sailed to what is now Dominican Republic, right? Hispaniola, they called it, which is the Dominican Republic and Haiti actually is both on the same island, right? Separated by a mountain range. What about Magellan? Magellan was rumored to be the first person to circumnavigate the globe, right?
Right.
So I would really like to see the actual path that he took and compare that path, put that on a flat Earth model and take a look at it, because a lot of these old sailors are saying, you know, that they have traveled, you know, X amount of miles. And when you look at the map, you're like, well, that's crazy. Would they do it twice?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they're saying they traveled more miles,
60,000 miles.
Yeah, versus what it actually should be, which is a question, right? I mean, that helps you to question whether, you know, it's just like the theory, okay, from flying from Australia to Chile, why wouldn't you just fly directly there? And why do they fly to North America and then down to Chile?
Right.
You know what I mean? These are all questions. These are like legit questions. And these are all questions for you, Andy, when you get Dave on the show.
No, totally.
That's yeah, so I mean, you know,
there is Well, no, you go ahead. I would just spitballing about flat Earth anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Andy. I want to hear what you got.
Well, so the circumnavigation thing, from what I've heard, the only circumnavigation that we really have confirmed people doing is horizontally and never vertically like this.
Right.
So, and the thing is that's kind of like the symbolism used to describe the problem with the globe on the flat earther side. That when they do flatten the map out and do it the way I guess David Weiss's app is, yeah, it's basically a kind of, that's what happens. Like north is fine, but south is all sorts of screwed up. That's where the flight patterns are. It's all the southern ones that are the questionable ones or something.
Right. So the North Pole and the South Pole, those are no-fly zones. Okay, why are those no-fly zones?
Why?
Yeah, why are those no-fly zones?
Oh,
right?
and I totally agree that there's something very weird.
Okay,
about
so
Antarctica,
when Admiral
regardless.
Byrd talks about the land masses beyond the poles, right? Like I am totally like sucked into that.
So
like
can
that's
I just
a big
can
thing
I ask a question to
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
real quick? So let me ask your take, because I'm fascinated by that too. I mean, The Thing is like my favorite horror movie. Antarctica is like my favorite place that I'll never go. Yet it could all fall apart, right? It could just be something else. But when I heard it come out of Admiral Byrd's mouth, he was talking about, I thought he was talking about them not fathoming just how much land Antarctica was. And so when he said he literally said that there's enough land, or there's more land than North America, beyond, I think he said like I can't remember exactly the quote, but to me, it sounded like he was referring to, holy shit, guys, this isn't just some little like ice patch. This is a whole continent. But I don't know, maybe I could be way off on that.
No, but this is how I took it. When he says there's vast lands beyond the poles, no, I'm thinking, okay, so that's not really possible in the North Pole, unless you believe in his story where he flew into the North Pole, which would have been flying into the Hollow Earth, right? But I think it's more believable when he talks about, say, lands below, vast lands beyond the poles, the South Pole. Right. So if we take, just say, for instance, like we'll take the flat Earth version of this, right? So if Antarctica is an ice wall that has certain openings that go out, Admiral Byrd said that there's continents beyond the poles bigger than North America. Now, have you guys seen the maps that are out there that show what we perceive as our world? And then you have the ice wall that has some openings in it. And then you have all these other land masses. Lemuria is one of the islands. It's named Lemuria. And I wish, I should have thought of it, but I was running late. I wanted to pull that map up so we could talk about that. But then you hear the stories of the ancient Scandinavian sailor, was it Johansson or Olafsson or something like that, that says that him and his son were sailing and they found this opening in this big ice wall, and they went through it and they came upon like grassy areas that weren't frozen, right? I mean, and they started out in the North Pole, or where in this story
it was the
North
South
Pole,
but I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, we'd have to check that out. But I mean, when they got back and they told the story, like they put the guy in a nut house.
Yeah.
Right, because they just didn't.
I'm
believe
not
the
familiar
story.
with that one, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I think I've heard some of that, and I'm miscorrelating it with Admiral Byrd's story, because there was actually
a book written about it and I think it's Olafsson. If I'm not,
I heard that name. I've definitely heard that name.
Yeah, so really interesting story. So is that outside of our perception of what our world is? Say it's a flat Earth, and you get out past Antarctica, and it's just massive, and it just goes on forever and ever, because there's multiple ice walls on those maps. You got the ice wall, that's what we would perceive as Antarctica. Then you have continents there, and then there's another ice wall, and so on and so forth. It just goes on. Well, I won't say forever, but it's like they say that we're on an infinite plane, right? Like infinite to me, when I learned in math class, like infinite's forever. right? So I mean that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But like I am obsessed with these lands beyond the poles. And you know, obviously, there's not a. I mean, you can research this, and there's just really not a lot out there about it. When you start going deeper back in these really old maps that you're seeing that show Antarctica, like with animals and tropical trees and lakes and ponds and rivers and stuff like that. And I mean, who made those maps, right? I mean, somebody didn't pull that out of their ass. I mean, somebody made these maps, you know. And I mean, and it's such an interesting subject to me, which is why I kind of, you know, and I know we're kind of getting off topic because we were talking about David Greer and the cosmic hoax, but I mean, but it's all tied in. Like we started to touch on that earlier when Dave was talking. Everything has a connection, like in some weird, funky way. All of this stuff is connected. And if you were able to put like this massive Venn diagram together, and then all of a sudden, let's see what ends up in the middle. And what's the middle going to say? It's all a lie. Because everything that we've been taught, you know, that we're learning now is, you know, is you know, not exactly 100% accurate, right? But that whole land beyond the poles, when I heard Admiral Byrd say that, when that came out of his mouth, and I can't believe that they didn't scrub that interview. Like I can't believe that wasn't scrubbed. Like the government just got rid of that. But you know, he kind of was forced into retirement after that, which I found to be kind of interesting.
So my perspective, just to throw this in here, and then Camden reflect on these what we're saying. I worry about every piece of information that we conspiracy theorists can easily get our hands on. Maybe our friends and family are like, "What are you talking about?" We're like, "Oh, you're not digging, you know, whatever. We dig for it, we find it." We shouldn't be able to find any of that shit. You know,
well,
like
what my theory is, Andy, is this where the extraterrestrials come from?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
is this where these craft are coming from? Are they coming from the land beyond the poles, and they're not coming from space? Like if you take the flat Earth, and we're living inside of a firmament, right? I mean, just going by what their thoughts are and what their theories are. So that would make sense. So how can an extraterrestrial come here from another universe and fly through the firmament, right? So, but the extraterrestrials could come from other civilizations that are on the infinite plane.
On the plane, yeah. No, I'm about to send a photo in chat.
Sure.
Okay. I just found, I was starting to look it up too, but I've not seen this photo before. And that is not even golf ball concave. That's like concave and then rise to the North Pole again. And so it would even begin to make sense how you could say easily North Poles, all that geography is correct when people are flying around it, but that South Pole nautical miles and everything makes no sense.
Camden, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Where do I access that map?
Chat at the bottom.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And then I open that file. Like that's one of the most interesting Earth maps I've seen.
It just wants me to save.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you can save it.
For me.
Okay, wait. I'll just send a link to the webpage. You can open the webpage.
You don't have permission to save.
That's weird. I'll just go send a link to the webpage.
Cool. Do it up. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm coming from too paranoid a perspective, but I tend to see a lot of I just see the plots playing out over and over again. Like I get into the astrotheology angle of stuff too, where like all the it's like the process of astrology, the constellations and the zodiac is just kind of I don't even know where I was going with this. I'm brain farting as well.
I get
late now.
Okay,
but you know what I'm saying?
No,
like it's symbolism rather than physical events, possibly.
Yeah, astrology to me, even you started to talk on that. The stars and everything have just not made sense to me for a long time. This whole like the astrology that people get into, and they say, you know, you're a Libra, this means this. You're a Cancer, this means this. Those stars can't be correlated to anything about me. I don't get how people buy into it. To me, astrology is more of like an excuse, cop out, like, oh, sorry, I'm so petty, I'm just a Sagittarius or what, you know. That's how I always taken those. So I don't really
Oh, that would be me too, Camden. I'm a Sagittarius.
Well, the horoscope aspect, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we can leave it or love it, because then you run into the idea of manifestation, which is, I mean, to me, it can be looked at as like a hokey dokey sort of new age thing, or it can be looked at as the messages that every religion's been saying for thousands of years. We just don't get it because none of us understand the symbolism that Jesus was saying and the Buddha was saying and Krishna and all of them were saying this, that it's within you, it's within you, it's within you. Stop following me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Forrest
But we
Gump
never
even,
do.
yeah.
And the thing is what is it? Religion's a beautiful thing now to me, where it's like it's such a nice warning to keep away from these authoritarian psychopaths, because that's literally what Satan seems to be. It's the aggressor. It's it's a system, and the system will corrupt you. And I was talking to Clint Richardson a couple months back about a lot of deep, crazy shit about the laws and how all of it's written against us. And he claims that the Bible is kind of our only saving grace. And I mean, that sounds too much. It sounds too religious to say that, you know what I mean? But what I have an
interesting perspective on it. So keep going.
Yeah. What he means by that is that what the Bible is kind of like telling it how it really is, if you know what to look for. And when he says that, like you will always be persecuted, like that theme, I'm finding that now, if you want to stay in society, if you want to live in this, and if you want to try to go against it, you're going to be persecuted. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's this system that we're working against, and Lord knows they've been possibly manipulating symbols for thousands and thousands of years, because just look at the pentagram that's thought of as pure evil. Even I sound like a broken record for anyone who listens to the podcast regularly, but it's a divide and conquer thing too. It's just so many layers to it. I love the extraterrestrial idea, but I look at Greer and I look at Elizondo and I look at the two factions and I go, okay, so this is what they've done. They have slowly taken my UFO community away from me. I mean, not really, but in a sense, that's what they've been working to do. They're
splitting it into political parties. They're left and right now.
Yeah.
It's like, come
beautifully
on.
said. Yes.
And they're splitting it into multiple parties too, because you have like the MUFON people are fighting with these people that are fighting with that people. And I mean, okay, aren't we supposed to be working together on this?
Yeah, it's always been infighting in the UFO community, but it's now it's like we have these two figurehead ideologies coming into clear focus. And like I said earlier, I just don't, I'm not saying this takes away from the experience, and I typically go by direct experience, and I can relate to a lot of crazy stories because I've had a lot of crazy direct experiences, but like without that, it's hard to verify. But like this seems like a setup, and I don't think that means anything bad for real experiences, but what we're getting from them, from all of it. We don't have to go so far to say that everything's fake. We don't have to do that, but it's a playful idea, and it works quite often. It works in your own head. Let me tell you,
it takes some stress off, I'll say the least. You got into a bit of the like mind head games, like anything real. When I've gotten like that before, I think you could see him. Yeah, no, that dog over there. I have to be like, Kodak is real. His name is Kodak. I like those are the things that ground me when I get into those modes.
Like the little spinning top in that Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Yeah.
But and whoever's cat was meowing in the background.
Right. Where was I going? No, I had a good one. It was before we split political party thing.
We were talking about
you
astrology.
Said you had a different perspective on something.
Yes. Religion.
That's yes.
So to me, the Bible, religion, blah blah blah. I'm pretty certain, like Germex, sure, 99.9% sure, y'all here don't necessarily need like a written out rule to like know good from wrong, morally correct from like treating people badly, right? But better or worse, a lot of people in the world, if we want people to be overall good, they kind of need something explicit. So
Yes.
good and bad is implicit inside of us, but a lot of people need something explicitly written out. So the Bible, religions, all those are explicit definitions to help people that really can't figure it out. So to me, that's what religion's always been. It's now gotten this weird, perverted, sick, twisted sense. But like originally speaking, the way it started, it's giving people something to shoot for.
Now, do we think that came from aliens?
Well, right. Did they realize, looking at all these humans, like, yo, if we just let them do it, they're good. Like, they'll make nukes again. They'll, you know, you get what I mean? Like, so like, did they set this up? That's a good question. I you know, unknown.
Of course,
Yeah,
unknown.
So I have some theories on the Bible too. Like I've always said, like I'd like to read the real Bible.
Yeah,
I'd like to read
a bunch of tattered scrolls.
I'd like to read the
Mary Magdalene's book,
the
Judas's book
version. Yeah. So the Bible does help people that need it, right? Like I'm not against religion. Like I study religion. I'm not a super religious person.
Yeah.
You know, I consider myself a moral, good person, and I am like a spiritual person.
Right.
And I'm not saying that as a cop out because I know that everybody says that. But I wasn't raised to go to church every Sunday. I mean, my parents tried it for a couple of months and they could see that it wasn't working out. So, but it doesn't mean that I'm morally a bad person because of that, right? Like you don't need to go to church to be a good person, right?
No.
But I would really like I'm really interested in reading the books of Enoch now. That's kind of a new thing for me. Excuse me. And I've read the Bible. I've read the Bible, like different versions of the Bible.
Yeah,
I've read the King James version. I've read the NIV version. I've read the American Standard version, you know, not cover to cover, but you know what I mean? Like hitting different excerpts of it, whatever. But then when I discovered this book of Enoch, and like you say, the Mary Magdalene and things like that, where she was totally vilified in the Bible, which, and I don't think she was a villain at all. I think she was life.
If you ask me,
it's a symbol for the vilification of the sacred feminine, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, if you ask me, you know, Jesus could have had all these disciples, Judas his best friend, blah blah blah. But I guarantee you, the person he was saying the most shit to was Pillow Talk.
Always is the case. Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting about the Bible, that it teaches us that it's okay to do bad if you're working towards a good outcome.
Yeah. That's a weird one.
Yeah, it's kind of a little paradoxical.
Right. And I mean, we see that even today. That's part of what I build on. Like today, the explicit version of that is things like the Avengers movies. They're good guys fighting this ultra terrestrial bad guy thing, and sometimes they do bad to do good. Like in the most recent ones, they change timelines so that they could have the correct outcome in the end. Like
they could have their friends back.
Right. So
they can have the emotional need filled.
It's
the lower energies fulfilled.
It's all religion, really.
It really is. That's how I see it. And I see the UFO situation as very, very spiritual in nature.
I'm worried that will turn into a religion, actually.
Well, sure. I guess I'm saying I find it to be like, I really do feel like the UFO situation is at the very heart of all of our mysteries. You know, people can focus on the ancient bloodlines that rule the world and not even believe in aliens, you know, sometimes. But I do personally, I think this is at the core of it, because it's the other, it's the ancient other. It's the only other there is, because other than this concept that we have, it's all been us. It's all been the plants that we know, the animals we know, the earth that we know, the water that we know. It's all been us. And this concept of other is so ancient. And that's kind of what really worries me about these factions and what they're really hiding, because how far away from the truth can you argue with one another to make the child think something completely different than what's going on?
Yeah.
Right. You know, I'm kind of a firm believer that a lot of these things that they talk about in the Bible, like what Camden said, you know, when the Hebrews were going in the desert, for 40 years to, you know what I mean? Like they were led by something, right? So I have this theory, and obviously I'm not the only one that has this, that a lot of these things that happened in the Bible that made these massive stories were all based on extraterrestrial contact, right? Chariots in the sky. Okay,
if you read the biblical description of an angel, what the hell is that?
Yeah, an angel is an extraterrestrial, right? And I know this is, I don't want to sound blasphemous, but I have a theory that Jesus was a hybrid human, that he wasn't 100% human, and who knows, maybe he wasn't even human at all.
Yeah.
So he was able to do things in that, and that's why Mary Magdalene's sacred Holy Grail, which is the offspring of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, was hidden by the Knights Templar. You know, kind of a story that maybe we could get into sometime. That like there's a bloodline out there that is a Jesus potentially hybrid bloodline that probably has the types of powers that Jesus had. I know as that sounds kind of out there, and
it doesn't.
People listening that are religious are probably going to say, "Oh my God, what's he got? Is he going crazy?" but I mean, that's just a theory that I have, right? So I think a lot of the things in the Bible are based on extraterrestrial contact.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I agree.
I think we've yet in 70, 80, or 1,000, whatever years, we've yet to come up with a good understanding of what ET means. I really do still feel that way. Now, granted, some of the research that goes into the Generation Z podcast and the stuff that comes out of there, you guys are doing some crazy work. You should be in a bunker somewhere afraid of assassination or something.
That's
and I don't mean that to be rude.
No, because I'll tell you, it's starting to happen. I just recorded an episode. We've been doing this Let's Get Banned, right? I just recorded the one, me doing one.
Okay.
And
Sweet.
Get under the Cyber Polygon a little bit more. Monday, I realized the information files that I have saved and things like that, right? It's all on a hard drive. When I'm not using the computer, it's unplugged and the computer's off. If I'm on, it's VP, blah blah blah, all that. But I had to leave it running the other day while I went to work because it was uploading to Dropbox. Because on Patreon we use Dropbox because that can't be censored and anything. Yeah, right. I come home. I'm driving home first. I'm driving down the highway and I notice my phone's connected to Wi-Fi. I'm going like 70 miles an hour. It's connected to Wi-Fi. I'm scrolling. Don't text and drive, kids. But I'm scrolling Twitter while I'm driving, and it's connected to Wi-Fi, and things are still loading. What? I go to Wi-Fi settings. It's connected to a hidden network. It just says hidden network. I get home. My phone
in your car, Camden.
Yeah,
that's bizarre.
Well, not done yet. I get home. My computer is still on. It's connected to the network, but not the internet. So like that next step. What it is sending and receiving information to on my computer is a hidden network. I can't connect to the internet. I use a Ethernet adapter and then connect it to my phone, so it's using LTE to connect to the internet. I uninstall the Wi-Fi LAN card driver, go to the internet, re-download it. It wouldn't let y'all see pics. But reconnecting to the internet, I kept getting this thing that said, enable Federal Information Processing Standards, in parentheses, FIPS, compliance for this network.
What the fuck?
Asking me to check the box.
That's crazy.
And I've never even fucking heard of that. Best Buy had never heard of it. Looked it up now. It's NIST, the National something Standards and Technology. It's something that they worked with Microsoft on. I don't know if y'all have heard about that $10 billion Jedi contract getting canceled.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I remember that.
So it was all part of that. FIPS is government computers, government approved encryption, and on government computers you have FIPS on so that you're only using things that are encrypted in a way the government's okay with. But If you ask me, that's because they love their back doors.
Absolutely.
Right? So it wouldn't let me turn the network on until I didn't, by the way, in the end, push this button. I kept trying to get around it. Finally, I figured out how to. I had to like change network name, but like they're really trying.
That's some creepy shit, man.
Yeah,
that's big time. And for you to have Wi-Fi as you're driving down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of such a thing unless there's some massive Wi-Fi network that's out there that's under government control that they can that they utilize their Wi-Fi to access people's phones when, say, for instance, there's no cell service.
Right.
Well, we already
so they can access your phone anytime through their internet.
Right.
That could be coming from 5G towers, could be coming from satellites. It could be coming like we're not really sure what Starlink is yet.
No,
Starlink is being put up. Starlink's being put up so that little Jimmy in Africa can get the internet in the rainforest.
And even with Starlink, Amazon, Blue Origin, I think, is launching literally just as many satellites in the 3000s at the exact same time. Like, if you ask me, someone needs to be figuring out like how to get like garbage trucks in space, because there's going to be so much. That's a
giant vacuum cleaners,
right? But where is it coming from?
I think the balloons will clog it.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
And so it doesn't. 5G maybe makes the most sense to me. There's got to be, I don't know, quantum computing is getting really big now. Like, it doesn't, I don't know, but it's something.
Yeah. Well, you could bet it wasn't Verizon's.
No, absolutely not.
Come to go on your Verizon app and see where we have free Wi-Fi, so that we can access your phone for you.
And the weird thing even is like, my dad's computer downstairs, my brother's laptop in his room, those didn't have the hidden network. It was
I'm actually kind of surprised.
They singled out your IP address and went after you.
So they sent you a message, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, that's in the episode that I recorded. I said it's not like I think yeah, sure, I've got things that they don't want on the internet, but it's not like I even think they went to go look and see what I have. I think it was more of a scare tactic, because absolutely right. And it's not gonna, I don't care, I ain't stopping. I'm more stubborn than that, but wow.
Yeah.
Right, so should I be looking for your name on the list when the list comes out? Because Biden is asking big tech for and medical for a list of people that haven't taken the jab. Number one, and any of us that have been reported for being extremist on Facebook, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You get that little thing now. Do you know anybody that's an extremist?
Yeah,
fucker. Everybody in my family's a fucking extremist. Anybody that's got a podcast that talks about conspiracy theories is an extremist, right? In somebody's view.
And so you and I,
absolutely.
So there's a very fine line there. Like, we could all be deemed extremists because we have extreme views.
Of course, we are. Absolutely. And that's why, like, you and me have talked multiple times, Ron, about studying up on ham radio technology and shit like that.
I'm looking at putting a ham radio in my Jeep.
There you go. Nice, man. Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, I think that's something that we definitely all need to get on. And we all need to have everybody's information so that we can stay in contact, because, I just got this really odd feeling that in the next couple of months, like, the shit's really going to hit the fan. You got this stuff. We just did a show tonight about all the unrest in all these socialist countries, right? You got Cuba, you got South Africa, you have obviously Venezuela.
France is protesting right now.
Yeah, you got the president of Haiti that just got killed, assassinated because he didn't want to take the COVID jab. Yeah, but all of a sudden now, we got plenty of shots. Right, we're going to send them over. Get you taken care of, right? So and then the people in Cuba are protesting because they don't get no vaccines, right? So they're very upset, so they're protesting in the street. Okay, this is how the news is framing this and spinning these stories.
Right. No.
Okay, so we know that globally shit is hitting the fan, right? And it's just a matter of time that's going to come here. And I really
South
think
Africa looks insane right now.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do an interview. I have a contact in South Africa. I'm going to be doing an interview. Yeah, we were supposed to do it this afternoon. That kind of fell through, but we're going to reschedule. And
it's bad shit. I've seen a couple videos from people like of the streets. It's
God, it's pretty rough. So maybe That's what this Project Bluebeam is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to bring us all together under one understanding or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like what Ronald Reagan said, one global
FIPS compliance.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
And
so
bring
we
us
were
under one global thing to fight the aliens, right? Which are going to be fake aliens, according to von Braun.
Right. And so we got to kind of wrap this up. It's getting late for me, and we've been going for over 2 hours now. This is great.
This has been solid.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah. So I will leave it with this: is some themes from the very beginning and throughout have been that, you know, they're trying to get ahead of what's coming, whether they like it or not, perhaps something along those lines. And I'd like to, at least before this ends, echo the idea that this is talked about outside of the UFO phenomenon as well, because the entire time that's going on, you have an entire huge spiritual community talking about how they're trying to mimic what's really good for you. And they're, you know, there's always the middleman. They always play the middleman and put you in, you know, put something in between you and your own personal power and this and that. So I do want to emphasize that theme and that idea that this is universal. This UFO phenomenon is a symptom of something much more universal than just something from outside of our planet, or something from outside this dimension, something from somewhere else on a much larger planet or golf ball or flat earth or whatever it is. It's more than these physical concepts. It's more than these physical ideas that are affecting our physical world in front of our visual plane in front of us. Because if psychedelics has taught me anything, is this whole damn thing can be under suspicion. Because there's you know, the DMT experience itself specifically is you know, no one's, not a single, even no psychedelic traveler or scientist that's working with it has explained to me why my cameras can stop recording this around us. I mean, so fine, your mind can do stuff, and fine, the DMT is unlocking something that's already there, like a receptor, fine. But what concerns me is these are cameras, and where is the feed going, and what's happening to the feed? Is it burning? What's going on?
I've got a sort of speculation for you on
Sure.
that. I got two things to say before we wrap it up now.
Sure.
So DMT, it is a naturally occurring chemical in your brain. There's only been like 3 of them done, but CAT scans at the moment of death, you can see you would call it a heroic dose of DMT released in your brain, right? So heaven, hell, DMT trips, so it sounds like you've been on one. They kind of are what you make it, and you are in a ethereal alternate place. Out of body experience, easiest word for it. So out of body experience, and then you have a body to come back to, right? But if you die, your soul leaves in that out of body experience. There's no body to come back to. It doesn't come back to it. And that's kind of what afterlife-ish is, right? What you make
your soul leaves and it just goes somewhere else,
right?
And your body, I've said this, your body is just an avatar. Like this body I got stuck with this time, whatever, I'm working with it, but Jesus, like right now, like I can't even hardly move, but whatever. So when your soul leaves, right, and they say that at the time of death, you know, what you experience is what you believe in. Like if you believe you're going to heaven, you go to heaven. If you believe you're going to hell, you go to hell.
It literally is. I mean,
we don't know. Yeah, we don't know what happens. Obviously, we're all going to find out at some point. But anyways, no, really super, super interesting thing, and what the DMT brings out. Now, I've never done DMT, and I can't confirm or deny that I want to.
I think it's something you have. It's like do shrooms and LSD and things. Like you can mentally maybe not be prepared for that and it'd be okay. But DMT really is something that you mentally got to have the wherewithal for. I agree.
Absolutely. All of them.
Yeah, no, right.
To a certain degree. And I've gone to crazy places on all of them anyway,
yes.
for sure.
Yes. And okay, last thing.
Yeah, last thing.
You got into New Age. And the middle person in our Patreon, we do Zoom calls and stuff, that he's said a lot of interesting things on, and we've even had some, like, on technology side, a guy that works for Rand Corps that I don't know why he talks to us, but he does, and he seems very legit. I've seen his credentials, and like had some private conversations with I think I'm cool with him. He basically says, like, I sit in these briefings all day, and I'm like, all these people talking, I know I can find so many more smarter people that have so much better perspectives, and so, like, I want to talk to them. So I think I'm okay with him. For a while I was like, but confirmed by him. So the New Age guy, he's basically he's of the belief that New Age, spiritualism, all that stuff, raise your vibrations, those things, that's a giant psyop.
I've heard this.
And
something to keep going.
Right. And by raising your vibrations, and then I'm adding in the technology backup of it. If you raise your vibrations, you become a better antenna for broadcasting. If you add aluminum, say in deodorant, or say in these, you mentioned White Claws earlier, these seltzers with actual hard liquor in the aluminum cans, they degrade the aluminum. You're swallowing a little bit of aluminum. If you're a better antenna, the government can RFID track you way better, and that's what they really use to track you. Every single person has an independent, unique RFID signature. And if I were to say, make sure I kept everyone 6 feet apart, I could always identify who is everyone.
Much easier.
Yeah,
that's creepy.
Yeah,
that's
very interesting. And maybe part of the experience is, okay, we're either going to track you and everything's going to work out good, or you're going to get Alzheimer's and die.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50 shot.
Yeah. And so he's very much of the mind that the entire New Age, like, spiritualism is in itself a psyop.
So I wonder, this might be a conversation I'm going to have with Generation Z with you guys, because holy shit, I mean, that cracks open Pandora's box for me, because that means, because there has to be, it doesn't have to be, that's my internal dialogue going, find the mimicry, because the New Age, quote unquote, is the old age. It's the most ancient wisdom we have. So I mean, that that we're just descending off into the branches, and then more branches.
And so he's of the mind that instead of raise your vibrations, you should be lowering your vibrations to match the earth, kind of grounding yourself, not elevating. And it's I mean, there's things to back it up. It's very we're gonna have
to I want to get into that sometime.
No, I'm glad to leave the audience hanging.
Absolutely.
I want to be in on that conversation, because I have a hard time believing that the new some of the New Age stuff is kind of out there, but a lot of it, I read a lot about Buddhism growing up, right? And you're talking, that's like raising your vibrations, you're changing frequencies, you're doing things, and these monks are able to meditate for days.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think that's a psyop. I mean, maybe part of it's a psyop, but not the original stuff.
Like socially,
that's what I'm
really. Yeah. No. Right. Because
there's got to be a mimicry, man. There's got to be something laid. They just lay it right out there on top. Scientism versus science. I don't want everyone turning completely against science. I'm almost nervous about posting like science in conspiracy theory posts. It's hard to even go near science that we actually probably could trust. Or can
no one wants to trust anything. Yeah, right.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point. And let's leave it at that for now, guys. You guys have been friggin' awesome. Thank you, Camden. Thank you, Ron, Dave, Zed, for coming in and having all this amazing shit to say. And Eric, just being able to be bombarded and take it. Eric is my very good friend, and he's always been the one he's always willing to go as far down the rabbit hole with me as he wants.
Yeah, and that's very
he just throws an anchor in the top while he's like, I'm going to go down there with you, but
I've definitely got a line.
Yeah, I got a line whenever I want to get the hell back out of here.
when I saw Eric
really respect that.
When I saw Eric sitting back in his chair and we're going on about stuff, and he's just looking like, what?
He's listening.
Yeah,
And
no, that's
He'll
cool.
be
That's
Googling
cool. Yeah,
or
that's
duck going now.
yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, I hope. I was
cool
definitely
thing.
gonna tell him that you need to never go
Yeah.
to Google again.
Oh, I've told him before. I think
Yeah.
he was on my very first episode, and he was like, I was like, why are you Googling? Why aren't you DuckDuckGo? He's like, because I don't give a fuck. I'm like, okay. But it's like, dude, I don't think you know what you mean when you say that.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, you don't give a fuck about finding any answers you're asking. Yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But anyway,
right.
guys, thank you all so much for being here. Ron, we can find you at the Wicked Planet Podcast. You're on Instagram, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
Wicked
you
Planet
can.
Podcast.
Yeah, I'm. You can find me on Instagram. I'm Ron from New England.
Yes.
I'll be
what
checking you
everybody
out. I
knows me
loved
by.
meeting you, dude. That was great.
Yeah,
great
you
stuff.
too, Camden, for sure, and Dave also, and Eric. And hopefully we can get together again.
Right.
And you can find my podcast page on Instagram as well. It's the Wicked Planet Podcast. So if anybody wants to check that out, come and check it out. Give us a listen sometime. Me and Andy, we're going to be working together pretty soon on a couple of ideas that we have.
Oh yes.
Andy, I want to thank you very much for inviting me to come on the show tonight. Like so sorry that I was late.
Oh, no worries.
Hopefully I didn't miss too much. And had a great time, great conversation, and look forward to having more.
Yeah, Andy, I appreciate it, dude. I was a little bit late too. I was editing video. I missed it. I missed the text from Dave, but I mean, like I was telling Dave the other day, I can't. I'm so impressed that like people like he of course he wants to bring me on, right? I can get how he feels about me now, but like to be invited on these things too from other people wanting to interview me and him, that's like I it's amazing to me. Like I don't know what qualifies me, but I love it.
Well, dude, when you filled in for Dave a couple times that I tuned into, and I thought you were great, and when I realized that Dave had a good friend right there helping him out with this shit, I'm like, this makes a little bit more sense. Otherwise, Dave would have no hair. He'd be pulling his own eyebrows out at this point. So, I mean, I really appreciate what you guys are doing over at Generation Z podcast. Ron, I appreciate you so much, man. We got to get together more. And we definitely have to do something in person with a bunch of us New Englanders for sure.
I know we're going to set that up.
Hell yeah. Now, Camden, you guys are further north, I believe.
No. See,
Dave,
you can end the recording and I'll
okay, no problem.
Stuff. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. All right. Anyway, guys, everybody, thanks for listening. We got way off topic, but I think that's the whole point here, man. I really do, because this, like we've been saying the whole time, this topic is a very universal topic, and it can't be boiled down to what these factions are throwing at us. So, thanks everybody for listening. And take it easy. See you next time.
Good night.
So yeah, thank you guys so much. This was fucking crazy. This is almost 3 hours. That was
awesome. It really? What time did you start at 8:30?
I started at 8:30. Well, 8:40. Yeah. Let's call it 8:40. So that was sick.
I was pushing Buckley, we had a little glitch in the middle of the show. I mean, we overcome it. It was no big deal, but our girl Kristen, she was in on the show tonight. And I told Buckley, I says, okay, so what are you doing? You're going to get that exported, do this, do that. Well, I said, dude, I'm a fucking half hour late for Andy's show already. Oh, I thought you said it was 9:30. He said, you said it was 9:30. I said, no, I said it was 8:30. I said, so get your shit done. And if you want to join in the show, pull up a chair. No, I got to go. I got to get going. I said, good, get fuck out of here. And
that's funny.
I beat up on him anyway. It's pretty good. But Buckley's a good guy. He's a good.
Still recording too, Andy. I don't know if it matters to you or not.
I am. No,
it says recording on mine. I don't know.
You know what? I think Dave is still recording.
Dave's recording. That's what it is. Yes, you're
Dave, that's for you.
That's fine.
You know what? Dave's not. I don't think Dave's here anymore.
No, he left his computer open, so that is recording.
You might want to check that in post production, Andrew.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Don't worry. I will. But
and I'll check it on my post production.
But if Dave gets to listen to it, then
that's why I think that's why I did it, and I think we're gonna post it too and all that. But
that would be great.
Dave, we haven't told anyone yet because it's super fun. But I live in Georgia, like cool. Like South US. He's from Toronto. He's next Tuesday. He's flying here, and so we'll be like in the same room together doing the podcast together. I think it'll be super rad.
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
your
we're gonna do
fans
like,
are gonna
yeah,
blow
we're
up.
gonna-
the
You know,
spot.
like-
Camden, when
Go ahead.
it's really cool, like when I do my podcast, my guest host, I mean my co-host is with me in the studio.
right.
And tonight, and we had Kristen, who's our girl that comes in, does a few shows and stuff. She wants to start being more active with doing a show, and I'm trying to help her
That's
out. She
great.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and she's really good. We're going to do some spiritual show and some holistic healing and and all that stuff. But it's different. Like doing a Zoom one, since I've been doing this since July or June of 2020, right? So you get used to the Zoom meetings, and it's cool.
Right.
It's cool. You can mute your mic, you can raise your hand, you can do all this stuff, right? Because I really I don't mean to interrupt. Sometimes I do or whatever, but I'm trying to be very mindful about that, right? But when you're in the studio, it's a different flow.
Oh, hell yeah.
I
I
mean, this show flowed awesome, but you get in this flow, there's no delay, there's no nothing.
Right.
And then if Buckley says something, I give him the hairy eyeball, or he gives me the hairy eyeball.
No,
it's kind of funny. It's
on.
easier to play off of each other when you're in the studio. So if Dave's coming to you, that's going to be a good show.
Like I took a whole like 10 days off work. So like we'll be like actually like all day. Like we're thinking we're gonna do like Alex Jones style, like sit there for a couple hours, because they have our phone number too if they're on Patreon, so members can call us. Other people can watch it, so maybe more people will join Patreon too. They get our numbers. Like we're like, this is gonna be rad. Yeah.
Dude, maybe well, no, I don't. I'll try to join if the timing's right. I would love to join and call in on you guys.
Right. No, dude, for real. I cannot wait for this. It's gonna be fun.
That's so awesome to hear.
What is your Patreon, Camden?
You have to look up the entire word. They shadow ban us so hard already. It's really annoying.
Is Patreon messing with you?
Yeah. So it's, make sure I say it right. It's Generation Z podcast. Just all 3 words spaced out. But I'll drop a link actually in this chat right here real quick before we go.
That's awesome, because then if you want, I'll put it in the show notes when I release this too. Because I usually, obviously, I'll link all the people on the show anyway, but I can put as many links for you guys as I can find. Honestly, that's what I usually do. I just had Etienne de la Boetie 2 on the other night.
Oh, I got to listen to that. That looks like that's a good show.
It's out now. If you guys aren't familiar with him, man, I mean, it's totally different than the topic we're talking about tonight. But I think I'm gonna be your neighbor eventually, Ron. I think I'm coming to New Hampshire if I can fucking afford it, because the Free State Project sounds pretty amazing, even though I'm not a libertarian because I don't associate at all politically. Still, they're doing amazing things, and they don't care if you don't associate with the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, so the Free State movement's pretty big up here, and that's what that Pork Fest was about a few weeks
back. I wish I could have gone. I wish Steve's told me about it, and I was just like, holy shit, when's that happening? And we just had so much going on at home.
Well, that was the weekend.
Garden, man. The garden's taken over my life.
I know, it looks awesome. It looks awesome.
So I was, dude. That's the way to do it. Get your own
baby steps.
Yeah, I was away 4-wheeling that weekend with Pork Fest because Bootsy wanted me to meet him up there. Because Ron, you're in New Hampshire, right? Hey, I'm going up to Pork Fest. I'm like, what the fuck is Pork Fest?
Bootsy's cool, man. I want to have him on my show.
Yeah, cool guy too. Yeah, we're gonna get him on also. So, but anyway, Mark ended up camping out on my front lawn that weekend. I wasn't home,
crazy.
but I sent a message to my stepkid, and I'm like, "Hey, my buddy's coming. He's going to camp out tonight. Unlock the front door so we can use the bathroom."
Yeah, if you see a hippie-looking, curly-headed fuck coming onto the property.
Oh, my stepkid's a huge pothead, so they would have got along just fine. Yeah,
Mark's awesome. He's funny as hell.
He's like, "Ron, man, this place is nice, man. This is a nice setup you got over here." I said, "Yeah, pitch a tent, help yourself. I'll talk to you when I get back into town."
Yeah, I definitely want to eventually do like some sort of like camping trip, like where podcasters could like camp out and do a live podcast around a campfire or some shit like that. That'd be so.
Hey, dude,
sick.
I got room at my house.
That'd be so sick.
I got plenty of room.
Have like you guys have heard of like Randall Carlson and Brothers of the Serpent podcast, like those guys, Grimerica, they do the Contact at the Cabin out in like the Midwest somewhere.
Oh, they just did
the
that.
Scablands. Yeah,
they just did that. Yeah.
So they have tons of podcasters go to that together, and it's a great meetup spot. I want to recreate something. I'm not, using anybody's house as an example, but like just in general, it seems like that's where we're all heading.
Okay.
And shit, even you down there in Georgia, that's beautiful.
Right.
That's a beautiful. Are you near the Appalachian Trail?
I'm a little south of it. I'm at, but even prettier. I live on the lake. So.
Oh, geez, yeah, man, that's gorgeous. So
you
anyway,
got
guys,
gators? You got gators in your lake?
There's some, yeah.
Yeah, I don't swim in lakes.
I'm not. They're not in the lake. I know where they are back on creek. Hop over land a little bit to that little mini creek, and there are gators. And I'm not Florida man, but I have played with them before. So like, yeah.
All right, so Andy, check this out.
What's up?
Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. It's the furthest most town in New Hampshire.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Okay. Friend of ours, family owns a huge log house up there.
No shit.
Right? They never go there.
Ron, I really like, sorry, interrupt, but like, I really like how your accent comes out very heavily now that I love it. And like during the show, you have a northeastern accent.
Yes,
sure.
Ron, it's
northern
not
Boston. It's a northern Boston accent.
It's not as intense as it really is, but for Camden, it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I can just hear it. But like during the show, like when we were like just all round table talking, swear I never picked up on it. But like I for real, that's very. I think that's hilarious.
That's like, natural, dude. This is me. I'm not making it up.
No, so I know. Anyway, so you were more relaxed, like you were in show mode then. Now you're not, you know what I mean? It's very funny.
I'm kind of in show mode all the time. But anyway, check this out. So I have access to this place like for cheap money.
Dude, that would be nuts.
Like a bunch of us could pitch in. They charge us like $600 or $700 for the week, right?
Dude.
And it's right on the 4-wheeler trail because I would bring my razor with me, right? So because you can't go to Pittsburgh without riding. Like you got to ride while you're in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've got a couple of rigs, right? We can figure that out. But we could all pitch in, even if it was just like a 3-day event.
We could plan that over the course of months and be real slow and
the problem is the internet.
The
internet's like garbage there, so I don't know.
Well, fuck that. We all have each other's contacts, and we can maybe, I don't know how to do it because I know I'm in the Union of the Unwanted's like Telegram group, but I try to go. I don't know how to create my own like group to add people into. I don't know. But Telegram's like but of course that's coming under fire now too. All these apps and shit. It's like no matter who comes out with it, somehow they're touched by this awfulness. I don't know. But anyway, guys, I gotta piss. Like I
for sure
have never had to piss before. Then I gotta allot myself about 45 minutes to play some video games before I pass out. So you guys are awesome. So take care, and I'll talk to you guys both soon.
See ya. Andy, can you send me the link to the show when you get it all done?
Absolutely. It won't be tonight, but
no. When you get it done,
sure.
like next week.
Absolutely. You guys will all get emails and shit.
I chatted a link to Patreon channel too.
Absolutely, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right, I'm going to check that out right now.
See ya.
All right. Night, guys.
I don't know. Can I end this meeting without losing the group chat? Can't really do that, can I? Well, that's fine. I'll leave this open until I pee and figure the rest
I got what I need, Andy.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know if I can end it without losing because I haven't gotten any of the links that I need. So I'm going to leave it open for a few minutes. But anyway, Ron, you take it easy, man. Thanks for joining me. This was great.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, dude.